Call the meeting to order. 10 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. Well, welcome, everyone, and a big thank you to Mizzou for hosting us all here today. I'm excited to lead our first 2020 board meeting as your chair. A little nervous because despite 3 years of service on the board, I still do not know when a vote calls for roll call. So bear with me, and thank you, Cindy, in advance. For our first order of business today, I would like to ask the curators, distinguished professors from MU to join me up at the podium and be recognized. These faculty members have earned the highest and most prestigious rank among their peers, which is awarded to a few select scholars with established reputations. And it's my unique privilege to present each of them with a certificate, shake their hands, and publicly acknowledge the excellence of their work. So please hold your applause and join me in clapping for their accomplishments after we've gotten them all these nice certificates and they're smiling back at you. All right, first we're going to recognize Professor Alexander Koldobsky. We recognize his internationally influential mathematics research and foundational work in the field of convex geometry. Next, we recognize Bob Sharp, Professor Bob Sharp, I should say, a major figure in the global plant biology community who has been instrumental in developing major collaborations and projects on this campus, including the brand new East Campus Plant Growth Research Facility. Next, we recognize Bob Sharp, a major figure in the global plant biology community who has been instrumental in developing major collaborations. Next, we recognize Professor Arthur Suits, a Mizzou alum and internationally recognized expert in chemical reaction dynamics with over 200 peer-reviewed publications. Next, we recognize Professor Arthur Suits. And last, joining us here today is Professor Chris Piers. We recognize his seminal research in plant evolutionary biology, which has garnered over $7 million in federal grant funding. We have three who were unable to join us here today, and we still want to recognize their accomplishments. So Dr. William Horner, Dr. Keith Herman, and Dr. Wendy Slutsky were unable to join us today, but we still give them all a round of applause. Yep, that was it. That was fast. It's an honor to serve as chair, as I mentioned earlier, and especially during an important time in our evolution. Over the next year, as you all know, we must make significant progress on our highest strategic priority initiatives, the projects that will set us apart from our peers and ultimately determine the future not only for our university, but our state. During my service on the board, I have repeatedly heard two reasons offered for why Missouri should accept mediocrity from its public research land-grant university system. Not by all, not by many, but there are two specific reasons that I've heard repeatedly, and I'm going to share them with you and address them. One, growing research is hard. Yeah, but it can be done. We just recognized 7 distinguished professors who are living proof of what is possible. 2, we just need more state funding. More state funding is always welcome and very much appreciated. But we cannot rely on appropriations. We have to focus instead on growing our revenues, seizing our own destiny. Last year, we grew freshman enrollment here at Mizzou, and we improved MU's credit rating outlook from negative to stable, not because of more state funding, but because we managed our costs better and demonstrated a more disciplined capital planning process. Difficult, yes, but clearly possible. To me, sentiments like it's too hard to do better or we don't have enough money to do better are circular, self-perpetuating, and defeatist. Apathy is like a virus that infects hearts and minds, clouds minds, and blinds us from seeing what's possible. And today I'm calling on all of you to reject mediocrity and commit to achieving what's possible. We have a sacred duty to improve the economic well-being of Missouri's citizens by serving our students, faculty, and community, and we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. We can fulfill our duty and elevate the University of Missouri to greater heights if we commit ourselves to a disciplined approach to continuous improvement, to doing things differently than we have, and to holding ourselves accountable to delivering on our commitments. Success requires us to compare and contrast. We must critically compare ourselves with an honest view to the more successful institutions, however we're defining success. We also have to create contrast to these institutions by doing things differently based on the lessons that we've learned. We're already doing this for many projects. For example, the Next Gen Precision Health Initiative, our #1 capital and #1 priority project that aims to elevate the standard of healthcare for generations to come. And for projects like our e-learning initiative, where we're adapting to higher education's changing landscape by leveraging technology to better reach today's students, many of whom never knew a time where chalkboards and paper were the only learning tools. There's also the Project Unify initiative, which has made great progress toward enhancing the student experience by standardizing system-wide technology processes. In talking with the president, our goal will be to have them finished or a plan for completed for immediate implementation by the summer. And in the next few months, we'll be expanding our use of data analytics that track and measure our scholarship and research strengths for all 4 universities. The plans we have for this innovative tool, known as Academics Analytics, will make us a leader in adopting a groundbreaking interface that has captured national attention for its capability to better connect faculty to their colleagues and to external funding opportunities, as well as help us internally build upon the strengths that we're able to identify from that data. We're also continuing to push forward our statewide economic development initiatives with Missouri SourceLink and the Missouri Buys program, helping us identify the most impactful strategies we can use to help build and support our local business ecosystem. For all of these efforts, moving the needle requires us to maintain focus, align our strategies, and hold ourselves and each other accountable. I'm committed to working with my dedicated Board of Curators colleagues, together with President Choi, the faculty, and staff, and students to achieve our goals. I'm really looking forward to what we can accomplish over the next year as we continue to challenge ourselves positively and commit to continuous improvement. Now I will turn things over to your fearless president and leader, Dr. Choi.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Chair Bernsick, thank you for sharing those words, the words to call us to action. And improving the performance of a public research university takes a lot of work. But I'm confident that we have the faculty, staff, and administrators who will get that done. So let me begin the presentation with my favorite subject, which is student success. What you see here in front of you is the first-time college applicants as of this past Monday. And as you can see, some of the universities like Mizzou have seen an uptick in applications, as well as S&T, but UMKC and UMSO are still finding ways to increase the number of students that apply. Let me also say that this is not due to lack of effort. The chancellors, provosts, the enrollment vice provosts are all working very hard to increase the applications and the acceptances that come to our university. In terms of the applicants who have been accepted, meaning they've made deposits, we see a big increase for Mizzou. Now, when I saw that number, I said, wow, 50% year-over-year growth. But what happened is last year they had the deposits for residence hall occur in March. This year it's occurring in February. And because of that, we're seeing that big increase. But they are ahead of where they were last year. So they expect actual enrollment of first-time college students to be anywhere from 5,600 to 5,800. Last year it was around 5,450. The other campuses, as you know, when we instituted the data, data consistency across all universities, UMKC and UMSO did not measure students who were accepted. But as you can see, UMKC has seen a big increase. We still need some work to do at UMSO, and I've spoken to Chancellor Sobolik about that issue, and she is on that project. Let me congratulate Chancellor Molly Agrawal, prior Provost Barb Bickelmeyer, and current Provost Jenny Lundgren, and the entire faculty and staff at UMKC. They had their HLC visit, and they met all of the criteria for accreditation. And we expect the final approval to come at their board meeting in the spring. Just as a reminder, Missouri S&T and UMSO are accredited. They were accredited fully last year until the year 2028. Mizzou is preparing for their HLC visit in 2025, and I know the chancellor and the provost are working hard to prepare for this very important accreditation for our university. Project Unify. I'm glad that you brought up Project Unify. This project is led by leaders at all four universities and the system, but especially Julie Brandt, Liz LaPointe, Steve Graham, and Christine Holt. The goal of Project Unify is to increase student success. How do we enable our students at one campus to be able to take courses at another campus seamlessly? How do we enable faculty members to teach courses across campuses? As well as how do we define consistent ways of determining in-state tuition rate for those students who apply? And how do we have a humane approach to deal with debt incurred by the students? We don't want to turn away a student from applying and re-enrolling at the university because they have a $200 library fine. We want to have an approach that will be able to have that student return and complete their degree. Remember, our goal is for student success. Research and creative works. The total research proposal across the entire system has increased year over year. Mizzou has seen a big increase in proposals, and so has UMSO. But UMKC and S&T, there's some work to do. Now, this is mid-year, and we hope that there are some additional large proposal opportunities for us to secure a healthier position when it comes to proposal, which is the leading indicator of research. In the awards category, Mizzou has seen a little bit of a dip. And I know Chancellor and Mark McIntosh are working very hard to encourage and promote multi-investigator proposal. But keep in mind, last year, at the end of the year, Mizzou had almost a $50 million increase over the prior year. So that was a big increase. But it's important for the AAU institution to maintain that level of growth. Overall, at the UM system, the total value of awards has decreased. And that's something that is concerning, but we still have 5 months of active proposal development period and the receipt of awards. Expenditure is the most important research metric. This is what is used to define AAU metrics as well as NSF, measuring the breadth, not necessarily the quality, but the breadth of research. But this is the gold standard. And across the system, we have increased, and I believe with the exception of S&T, which is flat this year, all the other universities are showing an increase in expenditure, so that's very positive. I'm very proud to announce that all 4 universities have partnered with the Department of Transportation to perform research on infrastructure and transportation innovation. Prior to this, MoDOT used to farm out the research to other states. And part of the reason that was given to me was that the 4 universities all had strengths, but they did not want to work with each other. So imagine letting $2.5 million of very valuable research to improve the infrastructure in this state. But now we have chancellors who recognize that together we can bring more value to the state of Missouri. And we expect that this project will bring in from the state $2.5 million, but that can be leveraged into federal grants and more collaborations across the system and other universities around the country. I want to share with you some highlights briefly of major grants and awards. And I'm only going to talk about those grants and awards that are above $1 million. At Mizzou, Joe Britt Rankin, who works in Extension, is involved heavily in providing nutritional assistance, education, and outreach. And she received $10.7 million this year. Also at Mizzou, there's a very important work done by 2 of our faculty members that are shown there that actually uses digital storytelling as a way for the caregiver to get a better understanding of their patient. And it turns out that through research, they understand that the patients are more likely to talk about themselves using that format more so than writing it down or having a face-to-face conversation. And as you can see, we have significant cases throughout the country of people who have Alzheimer's and other mental distresses that can benefit from a project like this. At UMSL, Professor Claire Wood received $3.1 million to work with their colleagues across the state to have evidence-based prevention and response to the opioid crisis. At Mizzou, Professor Marilyn Rance, who I believe is probably the most successful extramural research grant recipient at the university, and also a member of the National Academy of Medicine. And this is a project that allows senior and elders to live in their home so that they can have robotics as well as simulation and monitoring that can determine their health and also prevent accidents using artificial intelligence. Also at Mizzou, Steve Devlin, who's a part of the College of Engineering and Extension, leads the Small Business Development Center. As part of this project, they helped to start 770 businesses, and they helped to create $349 million in investments for these companies. So when we say we are creating jobs at the University of Missouri, it's not just at the university. We're creating those jobs throughout the state to create an ecosystem of innovation. Another major grant, this is from Dr. Lane Young Walker, who's an associate dean at the School of Medicine, as well as a chair of psychiatry. And she is using telephonic approaches to provide assessments, consultation to those youth who require that level of service. This is another way that we're bringing healthcare to different parts of the state, especially where we call the healthcare deserts or rural parts of the state. So faculty and staff successes. We recognize 7 outstanding faculty at Mizzou. There are many other faculty throughout the university, and the number of curators, distinguished professors number close to 100 across the entire university. And our faculty members are also receiving national recognition. Professor Chen Yi is one of the world's greatest composers, and she's been elected as a fellow of American Academy of Arts and Letters. And Professor Jim Bircher, who's not here today, but received one of the most prestigious prizes in plant genetics. So each board meeting, I plan to bring these types of faculty distinctions. And they have struggled through cases of lack of funding, lack of infrastructure. And it is our responsibility as legislators, as administrators and the Board of Curators to find the resources, support excellence at the university. Planning, operations, and stewardship. Let me recognize Ryan Rapp. Ryan, can you stand up? So Ryan Rapp, during the past 3 years, I've worked with him for 3 years, has been a stalwart in working with the finance committee of the board and the rest of the board, as well as leaders across the 4 universities to say, we must transform our university. And who would have imagined that with declining enrollment, declining state support, that we would get upgraded by Moody's? So it's a strong testament to the leadership of Ryan, the board, and all of the administrators. So Ryan and all of you who participated, thank you. Continue the good work because we have some more work to do. All right, thank you. Endowment assets. Endowment assets have grown partly because our advancement offices throughout the 4 universities are working hard. They're working very hard. But also, the market has done very well. And together, we can see that our overall endowment increased by almost $200 million across the system. And that's very valuable because we need those resources to continue to support professorships, scholarships, and other mission-critical work of the university. Annual giving. Oh, I don't have annual giving. Engagement and outreach. Let me talk about philanthropy. Philanthropy across the system has increased. There's some ups and downs, but I want to point you to UMKC. Last year, they raised $10 million up until this period. This year, they raised $44 million. Chancellor Agarwal has been very active in engaging the community, but also more importantly, engaging the community to support areas of strategic priorities at the university. And I would say that all 4 chancellors have that approach in engaging our donors. Sure.
Philanthropy, when this comes before us again, is that in any particular university box, or how do we track for next gen?
So that's a,
is that given to each university? Or
yeah, that's a very good point. Next Gen, which I'm going to present at the afternoon session, all of the funds that we've raised for Next Gen currently are at Mizzou. And we made investments into all 4 universities, including the UMKC Mizzou Data Analytics Center, the Glass Science Center at Missouri S&T, and the Spectroscopy and Nanoscience Center at UMSO. So my challenge to the chancellors is to use those investments that we make to leverage it for additional support. That way we can have satellite groups of expertise and instrumentation that all 4 universities can use. But by far, Mizzou is the one that has been leading it. We'll provide that information at each board meeting about how much we raised by campus like this for Next Gen. State legislative priorities, our priorities are to continue the core funding plus inflation. That's a COFI request. In addition, we're asking for $10 million for Next Gen. We want this to be rolled into the core. Currently, the governor's budget had $3 million in the budget. Last year, that was raised to $10 million. Last year, the governor's budget had $1 million. So it took a lot of work, and we thank the governor for that support. I believe it was the only line item support for a university in the state, but we were able to work with the Senate and House leadership to get it up to $10 million. And there's hard work ahead to do that, and so we must make sure that we are absolutely focused on that priority without having side priorities come in to compete with that effort. We also have $6.2 million included in the governor's budget for MoExcel. And we have Missouri S&T, we also have Mizzou, UMSO, and the UM system participating. And I'm going to ask Chancellor Agrawal to make sure that they submit a proposal next year for this very important work that supports workforce development. And there's also $8.3 million request for deferred maintenance. In terms of the federal legislative projects, all four chancellors, as well as Mark McIntosh, who served very effectively in his role as Vice President for Research, working with Dusty Schneiders and our outside lobbying firm, have these particular projects included in the final budget that was signed by the President in December of 2019. On the first project, Mark McIntosh and Elizabeth Laboa were the primary administrators leading it. Adam Willie Connell is a faculty at the School of Medicine as well as the VA. And we expect by October of this year to get $12.5 million for construction and about $2.7 million for ongoing support. That ongoing support, we expect that to last for 20 years. So total project support, if we get these funds, is about $65 million. Chris Dahlberg and Bob Sharp, who's here, they were able to get $24 million with strong support for this project, as well as the prior project by Senator Blunt for $24 million. Yes?
Albert, the reason I mentioned this, in April, we're going to do capital improvements. The greenhouses actually were somewhat controversial. Actually, a case where the Board of Curators approved the capital improvement. Which isn't to be recommended, but happens every once in a while. And I'm not asking this as a leading question. I'd like to know, Dean, how much role have those new greenhouse improvements and the opening of that played in your ability to obtain these kind of funds and this kind of grant?
So the dean is not here, but while they are related, this project has been, I guess, a project that has been in the works for about 8 years to combine with the Bond Life Sciences Center.
And I was aware of that. I'm just wondering if that greenhouse has ended up playing any role in the ability.
While they are related, this project has been,
I think any time that you are showing that you're investing, it gives people more confidence in you as an institution. So that will be a part of what we're doing. It's connected also to the Bond Life Sciences Center, and it will allow us to do even more.
Can I have a follow-up question to you, Chancellor? How does investments like this in growing research, right, investment for infrastructure, how are they viewed by AAU?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely critical to AAU. What they want to see is an institution that is committed to long-term sustainability of a research program. And sustainability requires that you have the infrastructure and that you have the support that you can continue to grow that research. So while federal funding is really, really important, it's also the fact that we continue to invest in the hiring of people and the infrastructure that they need to be able to compete at the highest level for research.
Great, thank you. So as you can see on this page, there's Mizzou, S&T Engineering. On the next page, there's UMKC and S&T and Mizzou again. Let me highlight the fact that at UMKC, the project on high-power microwave system for counter-UAS defense is going to be critical to address drone warfare, which is a nonlinear approach. And in this area, I would have to say that UMKC is one of the best facilities in the world. That's led by Anthony Caruso. And also, you can see there are many Department of Defense funding opportunities. And I know that Chancellor Degani is going to work with the Army to create an Army Center of Excellence at S&T through which all four universities participate. And I also want to recognize Dean Elizabeth Laboa for playing such a major role in garnering some of these projects for Mizzou and for the UM system. So that concludes my report, and I'd like to ask, are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
I think the next thing on the agenda is amending, no, it is our favorite student representative, Avery Welker.
That's why I
And
like to
student
hear.
representative report. Thank you, Avery.
No, thank you.
Can I make one correction? That's our favorite current student representative. I gotta be careful with the family.
Understandable. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Student Representative Show starring me, Avery J. Welker. And let's just dive right in. Actually, okay. We'll start off with the Intercampus Student Council. So ISE, we've got some more meetings planned with some more system leadership to help facilitate some discussion and collaboration between the two groups of folks there. ASUM is currently busy at work in Jefferson City. In November, 8 student lobbyists were selected from each of the 4 universities. Since the opening of session, they have been busy advocating for students in the Missouri State Capitol. Only about a month into session, several pieces of legislation from ASUM's platform are moving quickly through the process. House Bill 1306 was passed unanimously through both the Children and Family and Rules Administrative Oversight Committees. They expect to see it on the House calendar for perfection early in the week of February 3rd, and ASUM will be working diligently in the coming weeks to continue pushing their various pieces of legislation. They're also continuing their mission to connect students with legislators. Student Leader Lobby Day, set to take place on February 20th, is a day where student leaders across the UM system are invited to join ASUM in the Capitol. While at the Capitol, their university's student lobbyists will guide them around to meet with various lawmakers. For MSA here at Mizzou, they are conducting a survey throughout the student body to collect policy data, and additionally, they are planning a mental health week with more details to come soon. And of course, go Chiefs, right? For the Graduate Professional Council at Mizzou, they are looking forward to a great spring semester, which includes their 37th Annual Research and Creative Activities Forum, one of GPC's biggest programs of the year. This April, graduate and professional students have the opportunity to present research posters in the rotunda of Jesse Hall. Posters will be up from April 1st through the 3rd. GPC is also developing a pilot program of a community wellness group for graduate and professional students. The GPC Mental Health Task Force will team up with the Wellness Resource Center to provide resources and training for student facilitators to lead wellness groups for their peers. GPC aims to have 4 sessions of the pilot program this semester. Now looking at student council, this is our St. Pat sweatshirt design for 2020. S&T students are back and gearing up for a great spring semester. There are only 35 days until the 112th annual Best Ever St. Pat's, and the St. Pat's board is getting ready for a great celebration. They have renovated a campus landmark, the Puck, to make this year the most festive. Also, after some losses from the campus community, student organizations are partnering with the Division of Student Affairs to put on an impactful series of events for Mental Health Awareness Week at the end of February. In other news, Stuco is getting ready to celebrate S&T's 150th birthday at the Capitol. Looking at UMSL's SGA, SGA has a new seal as the executive team has been working on rebranding SGA, and they got their nice new seal right here. Additionally, with the president of SGA's participation on the search committee for the next chancellor, she wanted to ensure that she is representing the students to the best of her abilities. So SGA planned a town hall for students to express their desires in the next chancellor. It was a successful event with over 60 students stopping by. They also created a survey that will be sent to all students at UMSL. And that's what I've got for the reports on that. But before I leave, I just wanted to take a moment to say thanks to all the board members, thanks to all the administrators, all the staff, because throughout my time as the student rep, every single time I've ever asked for help or reached out, everybody's been so collaborative. They've been willing to work with me, and they've always answered my questions to the best of their abilities. And I can't thank you guys enough for that. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize everybody for doing that for me. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Avery. All right, now I think that the next item on the agenda is to request approval to amend the collected rules and regulations for section 10.050 relating to standing committees. Are there any questions relating to the changes? Okay. I'd like to ask Michael Williams to take lead as the new chair over the governance and compensation committee to help the committees develop charters that will help orient each of the committee's plans over the coming year, and that will become a part of, ideally, the board's planning process sometime in the summer or well in advance of the following year as we strategically plan what we want to focus on within each committee. All right, could I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carried. Do I get to pay? All right. The next on the agenda, I think, relates to the consent agenda. If there are no questions relating to the consent agenda, hearing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? And the consent agenda has been approved. All right, then the next is what, the minutes? We got that done. All right, next thing we have is the Finance Chair Committee report. So I'm going to turn this over to our new Finance Committee Chair, David Steelman.
Madam Chairman, thank you. I want to just elaborate briefly on something that Dr. Choi pointed out. I was delighted to serve again as finance chair, even though I'm sure. And the reason is, as pointed out by both the chairman in her report and the president, we have areas that need serious work in the university. We're lagging and we need improvement. However, and I have said this for quite a while now, and I think, Madam Chairman, you were finance chairman last time, you'd agree with me that one area of excellence we do have is our finance team. I'm not going to try to name them all because I'll forget the important one, but Ryan Rapp and Tom Richards do an outstanding job. In addition, I think Rhonda Gibler's done a great job for a long time. I think the other finance CFOs are making improvements in somewhat shaky financial situations at different universities. But one reason that we are able to move forward and to invest, and President Choi can make his investments, Finance Committee. And I know that sometimes drives the chancellors and the deans and the faculty a little crazy, but we are able to invest now because of the work of the finance. I'm not going to go through the entire overview. The documents are there for you to read. I want you to pay particular attention to our future finance plans that will involve some of the flexibility we have and what we can do on major investments, and potentially, and most important in my mind, next gen, but maybe e-learning and some other strategic priorities. So take a look at that, and the timing of the issuance may vary. We may have to have a special board meeting to approve that debt issuance. One reason we're so short is at the next meeting, and I'd like the board to be thinking about this in advance, we will not be so short. In April, we will make decisions on tuition, we will make decisions on budget, and we will make decisions on capital improvements. Am I getting this right, Ryan? And so those are going to be major decisions to make that impact the future of the university going forward. If you have any questions regarding our current debt situation, as you know, to go through what this university has gone through and to improve our rating is really a coup for the university. But if you have any questions of Ryan, please ask him. Don't ask me. I'm faking it. No questions. I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Chair Steelman. Next up is the Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Chair Report. I'll turn this over to Mr. Chapman.
All right. Thanks, Madam Chairperson. All right, so good morning. The Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee unanimously approved one action item at their committee meeting on January 30th, 2020. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Steve Graham to approach the podium and discuss that action item. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. We put in front of you this morning the Bachelor of Science in Fitness Programming and Management with a minor in business. It's kind of a unique program with all of the kinds of chronic health issues, and there's a new interest in fitness and wellness directors and just folks that work in industry as well as work as personal trainers and other areas in terms of fitness. This program is unique in the sense that it focuses not only on the fitness and health aspects, but it also focuses on assessment, evaluation, and has a minor in business so that people get that background that's needed. The other aspect that is unique about this, that this program is going to be 100% online. And so your first thought might be, okay, fitness, how is that going to be delivered? They have some extensive experience with that in the department, and so that through video conferencing, through sending in video samples of their work, through other tools that we have available today, simulations, we're able to offer this online. This will be a program that's limited exclusively to online students with the notion that, matches up with our e-learning efforts, and so that we hope to find very unique space and a niche there. As Curator Chapman mentioned, it got unanimous approval at the board meeting. It also ties in, and I was going to mention that, but I think Curator Chapman was too, so it ties in with our Next Gen initiative, which is sort of a broader look at health and wellness and fitness. As President Choi has said repeatedly, it's not just a building, it's a whole initiative. So this is right in the sweet spot. So
I'll make a couple of comments. We had a very active discussion during our committee call to discuss this degree program. Steve answered all of our, or Steve and his and the other professors that were on answered our questions. And we did ask, how does a fitness program survive 100% online? I mean, we've got Sunvolt, Curator Sunvolt and Snowden were on the line as well. And so they did a great job answering those questions, telling us, of the interest, in the program. So we're really excited about it. So offering a fitness program 100% online with a minor in business, we believe will bring state-of-the-art opportunity to address local healthcare needs and impact the health of Missourians. The BS in Fitness Programming and Management also aligns closely with the university's Next Gen Precision Health Initiative. The unique nature of this program is exciting and was approved unanimously by the committee after some very hard questions and tough discussion. Are there any questions from the board regarding this new program? Okay. Okay, if none,
I think you just want to acknowledge that.
okay, yes. Please come forward.
Thank you for considering this new and exciting program on behalf of my Department of Nutrition and Exercise Physiology. I'd be happy to answer any questions as I did for the subcommittee.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
My name is Christopher Harden, and I'm chair of the Department of Nutrition and Exercise Physiology. Been here for 26 and a half years, so I kind of know the campus a bit.
Yes.
Well, it just seems like there's a lot of apps and other online pushes for managing health. I'm just curious if you could tell us a couple of interesting parts about this online course that survived and overcame any of the questions from the curators.
Right. So there is a proliferation of apps developed. I review grants from the American Heart Association, and every population project has apps they're developing, which then, when the project runs out, they go away. This isn't about apps. This is about core scientific instruction to our adult learners. This is about giving them some hands-on experience remotely. So I'm on the oversight board for the Sheldon Simulation Center over at the School of Medicine, and we've developed a parallel simulation facility in my department for our dietetic students and a lot of our campus undergraduates. So we have the same platform as the Sheldon, so we can give a lot of that interactive, annotated feedback on the video that they send in and deal with them live as necessary. So this goes well beyond an app. This is a really interactive instructional platform.
Well, let me ask you two questions. I think the board may have these questions. I know we resolved them on our phone call, but tell us about the interest in this program. How many people do you expect? And then number two, tell us how you do a fitness program online.
Okay. So in terms of interest, we worked with Mizzou Online a fair amount to kind of do a market analysis. We were advised to put forth a very modest budget of a steady state of 30 students per year. Realistically, We didn't want to put it in the budget. We really think we can get well above 100 per year in this program. A lot of the interest is from active and retired military. As you can imagine, military, from basic training on up, fitness is a core component. They have a program called Master Fitness Trainers, and they're revamping their fitness requirements throughout the military. And the Master Fitness Trainers will be critical in deploying that throughout the military. And this is, of course, speaking with folks down at Fort Leonard Wood and elsewhere, that they really feel the Master Fitness Trainers would benefit from. So they get to move up in pay grades also, even for people who are not the MFTs, and for when folks leave the military, it gives them a toolkit to succeed and become entrepreneurial once they're out of the military. And so I think it's a huge win for our active and retired military. It's also, of course, pitched for non-traditional students who are making career changes, and it does address a very important healthcare need with the obesity epidemic in the state of Missouri, with 2/3 of all Missourians either overweight or obese. So in terms of how we deliver this online, a lot will be standard platforms of online delivery. Really, the chief architect of this, Dr. Stephen Ball, is a Kemper awardee. He won the 2017 Online Design Award. So we know how to put together online delivery. The extra part of this will be the incorporation in the upper level courses of interactive simulation. Again, on the same platform as we use over the Sheldon Center, which is a beautiful center if you've never been over there. So I think that with solid web-based course design, as well as the add-on of simulation, we can really do a lot of things here. One should be reminded that we have an online nursing degree, an online DNP, Doctorate of Nursing Practice. So having online degrees for hands-on practice is not new, but it's new in the fitness area.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have a question
Yes.
or a thought.
Yes, sir.
I thought the uniqueness of it was it's not I know it's online and we think of online students on campus, but it's a non-campus
Yes.
online, right? Because
Right.
there's many four-year schools here in the state that have programs, and we have stuff here, but it's a distance,
Right.
right? No campus student can take this class.
Correct. There are two primary drivers for that, two primary reasons. One is a cultural one. The students on campus have a different culture than students who are learning from home in remote areas. And when you have discussion boards, there might not be a good meshing of the perspectives. I think the two student populations have different perspectives. Secondly, we're very aware, especially with the new budget model, of the impetus of colleges to try to recruit students from other colleges. This is not competing with anybody else on campus. This is adding on to student numbers without needing a greater footprint of our physical campus. And so it should bring more students to Mizzou without pulling them from other programs on campus. So that was the second reason for doing it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question on that? That was a good question, John. This is, of course, a model that other successful online universities have done to maintain it as a separate online. How are you going to both budget and manage the budget and get credit, and so that we can tell if you're actually generating margin, which I personally believe is absolutely critical for online. It is the reason for online. How are you going to follow that so that we can get an accurate feedback? Because some of the online before where you mix students, the accounting, frankly, is a little hinky.
So we'll know which students are taking which courses. So we'll know the student credit hours are being derived from somebody out in Chillicothe or wherever they are that's not on campus. This program breaks even around a dozen students a year. It's easily scalable in terms of staffing and in terms of advising. And once we hit a certain critical mass, then we'll hire a full-time online advisor for this body of students. And so our investment should scale with enrollment, and we'll try to get a little bit ahead of that curve as it goes. It's a little risky the first year because we're going to need to put a certain investment in, and it may take a year or two to get traction in enrollment. But we should be able to track students and those credit hours coming through. And our payment for student credit hours should be the same for a butts in the seat course or this online course. It should be the same dollars per student credit hour coming back to the colleges and therefore the unit.
So we should be able to track frankly, the profitability. We don't ever like to use that word, but the profitability of this program.
That's certainly my understanding, yes.
I want to say, I think
budget
this is
scheme.
outstanding, Chairman Chapman. This is not only for this, but will be an example for what e-learning needs to become at this university if it's going to do the scaling and things that we need it to be. This is, congratulations.
And as long as I'm at the microphone, I do want to reiterate the importance of precision health that responses to exercise are customized. So this does fit very well with a greater and very important initiative. So.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further questions from the board? And, and
I promised Chris he wouldn't have to say anything, so, fine. One little footnote that I did add as this came up, and we discussed this much in the way that we discussed it today. For those programs that come to our office now for screening and approval, which is part of the cycle for academic programs, those that identify themselves as 100% on learning now, we're also working directly with Matt Gunkel's unit, so they do a second scrub. They've got more full-time marketing people, they've got people that can look at the budgets, and I'll be honest, Chris was right. We did ask him to scale back some of his projections because we'd rather have him crush the numbers of, what's the minimum that you can be successful, and then how can you go beyond? So we've got some additional help from Matt's unit, so we get a second and sometimes a much more aggressive scrub financially, and are they ready to teach it online? That's the other question that we'll be asking. So that's a new element that I think is worth mentioning. So we're trying to improve the process now. So without any further ado, back to, I guess you asked for a recommendation?
yes, thank you, Steve. And I did ask Steve, the committee, just to inform the full board here. I did ask Steve. We have approved several over the past couple of years. We've approved several new degree programs. So I've asked Steve to, give us something, as a committee to evaluate that shows what those projections were when we were, sold the program, and then kind of how those programs are doing now. And I think that would be good data for our committee moving forward. So,
And as Chris alluded to, just sort of as a highlight, we'll try to finish this up quickly, but we asked for two numbers. One is sort of an aspirational number, what they think they can get, and then we ask them what is the bottom line for fiscal and academic viability for the program. So we're looking at that number really closely, and at the same time, some kind of an aspirational or kind of a pace themselves sort of number. But we look really closely at the viability number, which is the one that he mentioned. This is what we have to hit in order to make it a valid financial and academic program.
thank you, Steve.
Okay, and I'm anxious to sit down as soon as I can.
All right, good work, good work. All right, if no further questions, we have no further questions from the board. Madam Chair, on behalf of the Academic Student Affairs Research Economic Development Committee, I move that the new degree program, Bachelor of Science in Fitness Programming and Management presented by the University of Missouri-Columbia be approved as outlined in the materials for this meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, this concludes my report for this Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Chair Chapman. All right, turning now to Curator Lehman to provide us with the audit chair report. Oh, and please remember to speak into your microphones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. The Audit Committee reviewed 2 of the 3 information items and 1 action item at the January 29th meeting. Chief Audit and Compliance Officer Michelle Peranio presented the Internal Audit and Consulting Quarterly Report and the 2019 Integrity and Accountability Hotline Annual Report. Since the last internal audit and consulting report, 3 internal audits and 2 investigations have been completed, and the risk associated with the MU Health Revenue Cycle Implementation Initiative continues to be monitored. 3 internal audits are being finalized, 3 internal audits are in process, and 4 investigations are underway. Also, the MU Health Retail Pharmacy audit has been canceled. The fiscal year 2021 risk assessment and rolling audit plan will be presented at the June 20th, 2020 Audit Committee meeting for the Board of Curators approval. The focus will continue to be on high-risk areas for higher education and healthcare, and on the areas important to achieving strategic and major business objectives. Michelle is working with university leadership to establish an executive audit and compliance committee. Michelle also provided a high-level overview of the information item number 2, the 2019 Integrity and Accountability Hotline Annual Report. In conclusion, the University of Missouri improved overall substantiation rates, reduced in the percentage of cases with insufficient information to investigate, and the average number of days to close the report. Details of each of those reports are available to you in your audit committee materials. Are there any questions from the board, from Michelle regarding these 2 items? Okay, thank you. Now, we're going to move on to information item number 3. Rachel Wiggins with BKD will present the fiscal year 2019 External Auditor's Report and required communication. She will also provide an overview of the NCAA agreed-upon procedures report and also provide an overview of the fiscal year 2020 audit scope, services, engagement, and timeline approach. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. You did a nice summary there of what we're going to go over. High level, the results of the 2019 financial statement audits, NCAA agreed upon procedures, as well as some preliminary planning discussions related to 2020. So one thing just to clarify, we are solely talking here about the external audit, which is a different focus than the internal audit that you previously discussed. We are focused on the financial statements and financial reporting, as well as compliance issues surrounding those. The audit is subject to generally accepted accounting principles. That's what what guides the financial statements themselves. And then we perform our audit under generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. And then on the compliance side of things, this is with respect to all of the federal money that the system expends throughout the year. And those funds are subjected to the Uniform Guidance Compliance Standards. We do perform the audit at the system level. Capital Region Medical Center does receive a standalone audit, but that is then blended into the system-wide financial statements. The objective of the audit is for us to express an auditor's opinion on the conformity of those financial statements with those standards. So during the planning process, every year we determine areas that we deem might be more susceptible to misstatement or possibly a higher risk. These are the areas that were identified in 2019, and I'm happy to report to you that there were no matters to report with respect to any of those areas. We're also required to report to you as the governing body any areas of the financial statements that do involve an estimate. Those are all identified here. Probably the biggest one is the last item, which is with respect to the pension and the other post-employment benefit liabilities. There's obviously a lot of actuarial assumptions that go into determining those. So we spend a significant amount of time really in all of these areas, making sure that we are comfortable with the estimates in the financial statements. And there's no matters to report to you, just to bring to your attention that these are areas that are subject to that estimation process. The significant accounting policies are described in footnote 1 of the audit report. There was one new standard that was adopted in 2019, and that was with respect to asset retirement obligations. So you did see a new liability that showed up on the financial statements this year, which was really offset by a deferred outflow of resources. And that's with respect to a couple of the nuclear reactors, the ultimate cost to decommission those, and that's amortized over 25 years. So it really has a very immaterial impact year over year for the next 25 years, but that is something that was new in the financial statements for 2019. We've also highlighted some of the more significant disclosures. Also happy to report that there were no audit adjustments that were recorded in 2019. So the financial statements that we received from management, we did not have to make any adjustments to those. Every year there's always a few adjustments that are passed on. They're determined by both us and management to not have a material impact on the financial statements. Probably the biggest one is some of the last minute valuations of those investments that come in. And so that is definitely evaluated to determine if it would have a material impact to the reader. And we agree that it's okay to pass on those. And these are the reports that have been issued, which is the audit itself of both System and Capital Region, as well as the NCAA agreed upon procedures for Columbia and Kansas City. We'll get to this a little bit later, but Division I schools are required to undergo that process every year. and Division 2 is every 3 years. So we performed those procedures at UMSL and S&T last year. The single audit is about to be issued, and I'm happy to report there are going to be no findings in that. It's in the final wrap-up stages as we speak. So we did issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest level of opinion that you can receive. It's what you want. As well as we issue auditor's report in compliance with government auditing standards. And that is really based on the internal controls over the financial reporting process. And I'm happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report with respect to that opinion there. So you didn't see any of those items because there were none. So that is a good thing. I mentioned that already. So looking ahead to 2020, we will be performing all of the same audit reports as well as the NCAA agreed upon procedures again for Columbia and Kansas City. The other two schools will happen in 2021. So looking at the timeline, we do have our pre-audit planning meeting scheduled here coming up in a couple months. And we will be back on campus in May to do our preliminary risk assessment procedures, some interim procedures, and then back in July to do, and that's really on all 4 campuses, to do detailed student financial aid testing, which is a big piece of the compliance work that we're required to do. Then we'll be back here at the system level August through October, really working on that system-wide audit. And we also have a separate team that goes out to the health system, which I was actually going to introduce. I have a couple other people here with me. Fred Helfrich is the partner who oversees all of the health system work, and then Michael Flaxbeard is the senior manager at the system-wide level. So the intentions, again, are to issue the financial statement audit in October, and then shortly thereafter, the NCAA procedures start, as well as wrapping up the federal program testing. Same applicable framework, all the same standards. As part of our risk assessment, we do a number of procedures. We talk with various members of management really across the system. We read all the board minutes. We read all the internal audit reports. We do an evaluation of key controls over all of the financial reporting areas, and then we do a walkthrough of those internal controls. And so we take all of that really into account as part of our risk assessment process. And then, so preliminarily, we have not obviously done all of that process yet, so this could change. But at least here, before we go through that process, these are some of the areas that some are by nature, and they're a higher risk area for any organization, doesn't matter industry or size, and then some are specific to the industry. There are 2 new standards that will come into play for fiscal year 2020, GASB 84, which is related to fiduciary activities. And this is really looking at, for example, agency funds or funds that are managed on behalf of somebody else. And this standard requires looking through that and going through really a series of questions to determine if the system if those should be accounted for as an agency fund, or if they're more of a fiduciary activity of the system. So we've already started these conversations with management to determine the impact, and we'll kind of conclude on that when we have our planning meeting. And the other one is GASB 90, which is the over majority equity interests. And this is, so right now there's a little differentiation in how GASB entities are accounting for majority equity interest, whether those are an investment or a component unit. And so this is some clarifying guidance with respect to that. Listed in your materials, all of our team members, so you feel free to reach out to them at any point in time if you have any questions. And with that, I will conclude. just in conclusion, I guess, overall, it was a very successful audit. I heard mentioned earlier the good investment return. It's always fun to be an auditor in years when that is positive, not so fun when that's a down year. But management is very helpful in gathering all the information for us that it takes to pull all this together. So, any questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our action item, engagement of an independent auditor and related fees. Vice President Ryan Rapp discussed the engagement of BKD as independent auditors for fiscal year 2020. The proposed action he presented represents a 2.1% increase over the prior year. The Audit Committee unanimously approved that the Vice President for Finance be authorized to employ the firm of BKD to provide audit services to the University of Missouri for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. This is the 5th year of the BKD contract. Every 5 years, the university conducts an RFP process to select the independent auditors. This process will begin in March with the solicitation of proposals, with a final recommendation being made to the Audit Committee this fall. Madam Chair, on behalf of the Audit Committee, I move to recommend to the full board that the Vice President for Finance be authorized to employ the firm of BKD to provide audit services to the University of Missouri for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020.
Thank you, Curator Lehman. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any extensions? Motion carries.
Can I get a motion and a second from the Audit Committee to conduct a closed session?
Then I'll move some. I have to know what committee I'm on.
You're on.
I will so move.
Did we get a second?
Cindy's right.
Marcy?
Second.
Thank you, Marcy.
You might exhibit a little stronger leadership, Curator.
I need to talk a little louder.
All right, so,
I thought Marcy did.
Marcy's
just
on
did
the
second.
committee.
Yeah, Marcy second.
There's a little cheat sheet right here. All right, so the Audit Committee is now in executive session. There's no vote required. Roll call vote. Darn it again. All right, Cindy, will you please call roll?
This will be a roll call of the Audit Committee. Curator Graham,
Yes.
Curator Lehman,
Yes.
and Curator Steelman.
Yes.
All right, all votes in favor.
Thank you.
This concludes our business for public session, and the Audit Committee will reconvene in closed session later this afternoon. Thank you.
All right, we're a little ahead of schedule, which is nice. So I think we'll move right over to Curator Graham to deliver the Health Affairs Chair Report.
Yes. Madam Chair and members of the board and the rest of all of you who are in attendance, the Health Affairs Committee met last week on January the 30th, and we had what I describe as a robust committee meeting. We had several informational items which I think are well worth sharing with the board. And first of all, we heard from Steve Zweig, who is the interim dean of the School of Medicine. And I want to highlight some of the very important information that was shared with the committee by Dean Zweig. First of all, talking about the medical school class that entered this last fall, and the class which will graduate in the year 2023. There were 112 students admitted with an average science GPA of 3.7 and an average total GPA of 3.75. There were almost 3,300 applications for admittance to the medical school. Of those 3,300, 157 were initially accepted, and eventually 112 of those enrolled. Of those 112 new members of the medical school class, 34% self-identified as being of an ethnic minority, 16% from rural areas, and 86% of the entering class is from Missouri. The dean's report then addressed the income production of the approximate 500 University of Missouri physicians. Net payments for physician services provided by university physicians increased during the first 6 months of fiscal year 20 by greater than $11 million or 11.2% over the very same period in fiscal year 19. Dr. Choi spoke during his remarks of the importance of research expenditures. Research expenditures derived from external funders in fiscal year 20 thus far, compared to the same period in 19, reflect a 37% increase between those two periods. So that's very good. In summary, for the report concerning the medical school, some good things are happening at the medical school. Following the report from Dean Zweig, MU Healthcare CEO Jonathan Curtright then discussed with the board newly established key Missouri healthcare organizational and planning objectives of MU Healthcare. The efforts include a revised organizational structure, which is in the process of being implemented, and one of those changes includes the appointment of Jeremy Fotheringham as the new COO, and I think Jeremy's here. Is he not here? We've talked in the past when we talk about MU Healthcare about rankings, and it's important to point out that improved Vizient quality and savings performance for MU Healthcare confirm that the hospital is making significant improvement because of changes implemented earlier. By 2023, MU Healthcare is committed to being in the top quartile of Vizient rankings. Accomplishing that ranking, that improvement in ranking, will also improve our CMS ranking. That would be important. Efforts are also underway to improve documentation and coding, which will significantly improve our risk capture and also influence both reimbursement and rankings. Recently, a private hospital over in Boonville closed, a major blow to that community. MU Healthcare stepped in and received well-deserved recognition, both from the community and the legislature, for its efforts in trying to assist that hospital, the employees of that hospital, find employment elsewhere. CEO Curtright also confirmed that the use of an executive search firm has been engaged to screen candidates for filling the position of CFO, Chief Financial Officer. A decision on that is targeted for March. Next, President Choi and Chancellor Cartwright presented an extensive update regarding NextGen. I'm not going to address that because that will be the presentation that we'll receive later today. The committee next heard from Brian Blevin, Chief Information Officer for MU Healthcare. CIO Blevin's report included discussion of the efforts currently underway for expansion of electronic medical records to both Lake Regional Health System and Capital Regional Medical Center in Jefferson City, the purpose of which is to create an academic-related system of healthcare in mid-Missouri to better serve patients and the providers. Also, ongoing work on a revenue cycle transformation continues with Cap Regional. Thereupon, the committee then heard jointly from both Kay Davis, Interim Chief Financial Officer for MU Healthcare, and CER Curtright. Ms. Davis first reviewed with the committee the long-range financial plans for MU Healthcare and reminded the committee that achieving these long-range goals is critical to funding its needs and investing in faculty expansion and continuing to make the needed strategic investments to assure that MU Healthcare is serving its mission. We've talked earlier in these reports about cutting expenses. An additional 12 million in expense reductions have been identified by MU Healthcare, which would add to the previous 20 million in reductions. Additionally, MU Healthcare is looking at another 4 million in potential reduction, which are currently undergoing review. And keep in mind, those reductions have not and will not reduce the quality of care one bit. Average daily census was 4.5% higher than last year, with strong performance in adult medicine, as well as growing in our two strategic service lines, cardiology and neurology. Clinic visits for MU Healthcare also continue to grow, driven by growth in our specialty care areas. Operating margin is at 7.1% compared to a budget of 8.1. Thus, the two primary challenges to be addressed continue to be increased payer pressure and cost inflation, which is outstripping revenue growth. These are challenges that MU Healthcare is addressing, and there are continuing efforts to successfully address these challenges. MU Healthcare's ratios and benchmarks also importantly continue to track with Moody's A-rated medians insofar as cash on hand, revenue, and accounts receivable. So we're meeting all of the requirements expected by Moody's. It is anticipated at this point that fiscal year 20 should end near its budgeted target. In summary, MU Healthcare is growing, operationally strong, financially resilient, and is being responsive to the headwinds of payer pressures, inflation, and ensuring that leadership and stewardship will continue to result in more efficiencies. The final information on the committee's agenda was the compliance report, which was presented by Jennifer May, MU Healthcare's Chief Compliance Officer. Ms. May first reported on our status with compliance of the existing corporate integrity agreement, which we've been under for a few years. She confirmed that for reporting period 4, it's over 50% complete, and all required items of MU Healthcare are on track to be completed in a timely manner. Staff education on high-risk security issues such as email phishing are ongoing, and data from testing activities have shown strong awareness by employees throughout the entire organization. That completes the report of the meeting of the Healthcare Committee a week ago, and I can say that it was a very positive meeting, very encouraging with everything that's going on at the medical school and certainly at MU Healthcare. If there are any questions, I would try to answer them, or Jonathan is here also to answer them. If there are no questions or comments, then we can proceed. Cindy, I noticed on the agenda that unlike other committees, do we need to approve the committee minutes? It's on the agenda.
Not with the full board. You actually just approved those with the committee, which is fine.
Okay, I would accept from a committee member a motion to approve the committee minutes.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved. That concludes the Healthcare Affairs Committee report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Curator Graham. Thank you, Marcy. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. We have a short break that was actually put into our agenda today, so that's really a nice treat. It's a little bit lengthier now. We have lunch starting at 11:45, so if you guys want to take a few minutes and catch up together, please take that now, and we'll start eating at 11:45. Thank you.
Great.
Are we in,
Actually, lunch will be ready at 11:30 for anybody who wants to go ahead and eat. Take a short break and the food will be ready.
oh, we've moved up the food too. All right, well, let's take a break and then eat. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to session, and because we left early, we're going to start a minute early. Keep us on track. All right, I'd like to ask Alex Cartwright to please come to the podium and regale all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Brunsick. It's really great to be here. I'm always a little bit disappointed to have to follow great speakers, and everybody had the opportunity during lunchtime to talk with our remarkable students. I will not be able to reach their level. But they are a tremendous group of people, and I hope you enjoyed speaking with all of them, seeing them from the different areas. Thank you to the board office. Thank you to everybody for making that possible today, because it really does highlight what Mizzou is about. Today, I actually want to start off by thanking some people. Elizabeth Laboa, who's here. Sandy Raccoon, I don't know if Sandy is here, but he's also will be leaving. And Tom Hiles is here. Thank you for all of your service. Thank you for everything you've done for Mizzou. And
Elizabeth, please stand.
oh, yes, Elizabeth. And there's Tom Hiles. Thank you. He's already standing. But it's great to have you to have been part of this institution and to really help to move us forward. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome all of those who have recently joined. I can't list everybody, but I put up one person who yesterday on Twitter, I think, became the meme for being excited about recruiting a player. So it was really exciting to see that. It's great to have him join us, and it's great to have all of the other people who've become part of our institution join. It's an exciting time for us because we're really thinking about what does it mean to be the flagship of the future? What does it mean to be the university for Missouri? The university that is thinking about how we impact the world through our education, our research, and also our engagement. And that means something because it means how we behave, it means who we are. And if you look at our faculty, there are, and some of them are here today, at least I know one of them is, there's a lot of great faculty here. Tom Spencer, National Academy of Sciences inductee, is a fellow. I don't know if Tom is here. I didn't see him earlier. Dungshan Duan, I don't think he's here either, but also National Academy of Inventors. And then we have 3 inductees into the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And I know that Dave Schultz is here, but congratulations to all of them. It reflects the remarkable things that all of you are doing at this institution. And we need to do more of this. We need to promote more of our faculty, get them, everybody to know more about what we're doing and get them into those academies. But it isn't just our faculty, it's also our students. We had this year 3 students who were actually finalists for the Rhodes Scholarship. That is a remarkable achievement. We have students who, are award recipients at our Biomedical Research Conference for minority students. And we also have a student out of Kaffner who's now actually in the vet med school, who actually started up a company, Calving Technologies, a remarkable program, Libby. And this, again, shows you what is going on here at Mizzou. But I want to talk about some achievements to date, but then I actually want to really talk about building on that excellence. And what does that mean? How do we innovate? How do we drive innovation through collaboration? How do we think about our differences as an opportunity for us to drive excellence? Because that's where excellence comes from, and I'll talk about that. And how do we also ensure that we're confident enough to make the changes that are needed? Those are all important things for us to be doing. And we've spent a lot of time over the last 2.5 years in looking at how do we increase our enrollment, how do we increase our retention. We're up about 38% really in first year and transfer enrollment in the last 2 years. That also is accompanied with an increase in our retention first year to second year, a commitment to student success that is putting us back to where we were in terms of total numbers for our students, but certainly also hitting record highs in terms of our retention. And that comes from a lot of work from our faculty, our staff, and certainly also from our students themselves. In student success, I just want to point out a few key things. One is our KC Scholars first year retention rate in that program. This is the KC Scholars program that we started. First year retention rate was 98%. There were 100 people, 2 of them left, but they went to UMKC. So I could have put up 100% retention. They just went to a different school. But it's a great program where we are helping people from the Kansas City area to really achieve their dreams in college through the KC Scholars program, which has been funded philanthropically through KC Scholars. Our student outcomes, successful career attainments at 6 months after graduating is almost 93%. And the last one that I show is our national merit finalist numbers for fall of 2019. And I put that up there, it's 45. If you look at the previous 3 years combined, we had 61. So we are not only increasing our numbers, but we're increasing the students that we want to be recruiting. So being able to recruit more of those students into our honors program, into the things that we're doing, is really going to help this institution to continue to move forward. And it is about our scholarship. I showed some of our faculty being in the different national academies, being into the AAAS, but also it's about the culture around the campus, the Artist in Residence program, and I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to see some of that. Yes, Curator Chapman.
National Merit Scholars, that's great that our numbers have increased like that. What does it take? What's the criteria to become a National Merit Scholar?
You have to score in the top, I forgot the exact percentage, in the ACT scores in your state, 35, yeah. So you have to hit that level. We have 45 students who've attained that. 36 is, yeah. So it's pretty remarkable to get a lot of those students here.
And what's the best way to attract those? Because I'm sure it's highly competitive. What are we doing?
I think what it is giving them opportunity. These are students who want to see that they have an opportunity to work with exceptional scholars, faculty. The more that we can talk about our honors programs, the more that we can talk about the extra things that they could be doing with faculty, working in research labs, going on trips, they want to challenge themselves in ways beyond just the classroom. And so it's a lot of how do you connect all of them with the institution and with each other.
Is that metric tracked by those folks that rank universities?
Oh, yeah.
It is, okay,
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and it impacts a lot of other metrics.
Good.
So, I don't know how many of you can't see it on here very well, but I don't know how many of you were able to see the artists that were actually working on our sidewalks. It actually attracted a lot of people from the public. This is not a hole in our sidewalk, but it's art. And the skateboarder actually is a real skateboarder who did that. So it's kind of an interesting a piece of art that shows what we're capable of and embracing that and recognizing the amazing things that it does for our society. But we have people that work across the disciplines, the humanities. Elizabeth Chang in English and her book on novel cultivations. This is her book at the bottom here. If any of you want to buy it, I would encourage you that you do that. But she is one of many faculty that we have that actually produce books annually that contribute to society in that way. And then the last one that I showed is just one that I just found sort of interesting, and that's this idea of wearable air conditioning. I think that's fascinating that you can extract heat and cool people down, and you can think about ways that you might be able to do that in clothing and all sorts of other interesting ways. That is what we're about. It's about that cross-disciplinary thinking across all of our disciplines, arts, humanities, social sciences, and engineering. That is what we deliver. If you look at our research awards, President Choi mentioned this earlier, last year, from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19, we went from, in awards, from 207 million to 255 million, which is about a 23% increase in a single year. And our NIH awards, which really is a strong indicator for the work that we're doing around medicine, around things related to next-gen precision health, that was up 17% during that same period. And we continue to see growth in that area, significant growth, because if you look at NIH awards by fiscal year, you will see that we've grown about 12 million over that period of time in just the past few years. Now, the darker, the black bar actually has to do with what percentage of that growth came from faculty that were either new or newly promoted since 2016. And you'll see that over half of the growth is due to that, but that's a good thing that we're hiring quality people that are helping us to continue to grow strategically in our funding. So this is something that we're feeling very good about. We just submitted our NSF herd number recently, which has to do with the Higher Education Research and Development Survey. And you saw, I think you showed a slide that had some of that herd numbers in there, President Choi did. But this year, we're going from last year 256 million to this year about 280 million. Again, that's a significant increase for us, about 9%. And we need to continue to think about ways that we can grow that. And our research expenditures are actually up this year again, based on some of that success from last year for our research awards. And we want to continue to do those things. Yes?
Have we done a good job, in your opinion, of rewarding our oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, are we doing a good job, in your opinion, of rewarding our high-achieving faculty, with more, whatever it be, awards, money, salary, whatever it may be?
I would say this, we are emphasizing that you can always do better, right? We can always do better. And what we want to do is it isn't just in terms of funding, right? It's how do you provide the right facilities? How do you provide recognition, right? How do we continue to change the culture that is one that we value what they're doing? I think those are the things that we are continuing to work on, and we routinely have conversations about the need for us to keep our best faculty and what that means, and if people are trying to recruit them away, how do we counter? My belief is that you don't want to get to the point where you're trying to counter. We want to retain them before the countering, before they go out and start looking. So anything that we can do to build those facilities and allow them to be successful here, that's what we want to do, make it harder for them to leave. A great university is not great unless it's also able to talk about how it impacts society. And that's why I showed you this engagement slide, is that it really is about, what is it that we're doing here at Mizzou? Show me Mizzou. What can you learn and how can you engage with this great university? And how do we get that information out there and help people to understand all that's happening across the state? Engagement Week, Marshall Stewart led this for the whole system, and Mizzou had a part of that too, but this is really intended to show the public what we are contributing to society. And one of the things that I know I talk about this a lot, but we did these little shirts that are the University for Missouri. And on the back, it really does talk about what it impacts. It impacts Missouri, society, the world, the greater good, and it impacts you. That's important for people to understand that this is what Mizzou is about. This is what we're trying to do as an institution.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
You can go back to the other slide, that one. And I think we've talked about it, I think we need to be marketing more aggressively, even harder. I love the University for Missouri. One of the, and it's just my view of it, that achievements that we can do, and something we can do for the state of Missouri, is online or e-education. And unless I don't see that there. And I was always a little bothered it wasn't a bigger part of Engagement Week. What are we doing to start marketing, expanding, and addressing the fact that e-learning is something for the state of Missouri, not just for the university?
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt Gunkel can probably speak to that. I know that we're engaging a firm to look at how we had actually marketed. The president probably can talk about that also.
So Matt, can you go to the mic?
Yeah.
And just give a brief answer, because you're going to give a full presentation, but marketing throughout the state and also regionally.
Online education, and really also working on sort of how are we going to brand this across the system, and what does that look like?
I hope that I feel the need to say this since my friend John Phillips is no longer here to express himself fully, which he always did. We've been having this conversation now before I was on the board, and I'm at 5 years right now. So again, talking about it isn't the same as doing it. And I'm not being critical, but I will point out, for some institutional thoughts, we've been talking about this for 6-7 years.
We will. We're always trying to think of how we can do a better job of marketing everything. But I agree that we could do a better job in marketing what we're doing for the state through online and how it's going to make people.
I consider that something that we owe the state of Missouri, and I'm not sure that we're meeting our obligation.
Yes, and I think that fits within, like you said, the University for Missouri. We have been fortunate. Yes.
I know the primary goal isn't always to make money off of everything that we do, but is this something that we are sinking money into, or are we actually generating revenue from our online activities?
Oh, from our online activities?
Yes.
I mean, the projection, we have been generating funds at Mizzou now for a number of years, and I think we will continue to see that expand. Earlier today, you approved a new program around exercise that's actually going to generate a lot more students that is fully online, and that will generate funds for them.
Okay.
Because we are looking at it, and I'm going to mention a little bit of that, not specifically that, but I'll talk a little bit about our budget model and a little later.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't get into the details, but it's important to think that. Sorry. So we've been lucky. We have a lot of donors who actually are very supportive. Jim Fetterling for Next Gen, the Kinder Foundation for the Kinder Institute for Constitutional Democracy, Donahue and Kipple for their work around diversity in engineering, and Jim Liu, who has funded a lot of student success programs. And these are just some of the things that have happened in the last year, and that continues to grow. But some of the programs that have been funded are really things like Heartland Scholars, and I think you heard from some of those before, but this is for students who are first generation rural, and ways that we can help them to be even more successful. And of course, the Alumni Association in launching a Mizzou alumni mentoring program that allows us to connect our alumni with our students. That helps us to continue to grow. I want to just talk very briefly about building on that excellence, because it's more about the philosophy and what we're trying to do. The first thing is innovation through collaboration. How do we provide the spaces that people need? And great scholars deserve the great spaces. And you'll see the engineering renovation, the music center, the plant growth facility, what work we're doing around nursing. Those are all things that help us to be better. And I think it's even best said just with a video that was given when we opened the music center recently. I hope the sound works.
Artists need studios, scientists need laboratories, and musicians need rehearsal space. Since breaking ground in April 2018, we have worked tirelessly to create a state-of-the-art space that transforms our School of Music into a mecca for music and composition. Today, we are proud to unveil the Gene and Rex Sinkfield Music Center. Inside this stunning facility, students will master their craft, prepare for careers, and expand music's impact on our lives. Thank you to everyone who helped make this dream a reality. Because of you, we are ready for the future of music at Mizzou.
I want to thank the Sinkfields for all of their investment in that center because it is with them that we're able to then think creatively about what music becomes at Mizzou. Innovation through collaboration, we're going to hear a lot more about this later, but there's a reason I say coming to a neighborhood near you in 2021, is that there's a different way of delivering precision health, and we'll talk much more about that later. It is about those innovations going to Missourians, improved health, global health care, all of this about the epicenter of health care and how that's going to solve society's grand challenges. And we're making progress. And you'll see a lot more of this later, so I'm not going to spend time on that other than to say we will get there. Excellence from difference. This is about how do we enable people to be the best that they can be, to have interdisciplinary programs across this university where you're connecting sciences, arts, and humanities, and social sciences all together. And the reason that we want to think about that is that this is really about our inclusive excellence framework. And at the bottom, you see a study that was done a while ago now by McKinsey and company about why diversity matters. And what they showed is that companies that are gender diverse are 15% more productive than companies that are not. And companies that are diverse in every sense of the word are 35% more productive. So there is a financial and economic reason for us to be thinking about how we leverage that difference across this institution. And we're doing that in terms of how we work with our students, the Case Scholars Program. We're doing that in the way that we innovate around education that is more inclusive, that thinks about the fact that we have so many different people with different viewpoints and different backgrounds, and how do we leverage that to be even better. All of that, our innovation through collaboration, our excellence from difference, drives that confidence to change. And we have to think about how do we empower people, how do we provide opportunities, how do we enhance processes, how do we drive efficiency, and how do we just be creative and not think about things the way they were done 10 years ago. That requires people to think creatively about the exercise program that you heard about earlier today, right? Management, thinking about how you do that online. It's kind of a little bit counterintuitive, right? That maybe this doesn't make sense, it's online. But we also have things that the Kinder Institute, looking at constitutional democracy and Atlantic history and politics, where they're looking at the differences between how you might look at that same problem from being in the US versus being in England, right? And it's interesting to think about the different perspectives there. MS in business that's online and stackable degrees and all of the things that we're trying to do there. Digital storytelling program and an engineering capstone that was in collaboration with theater, where we're trying to teach creativity for driving more success among our students. We're interested in more partnerships, more collaborations, and we're talking to a number of different companies, and you'll hear more about this later with NextGen, but in general, we want to be thinking about how we are more creative about those partnerships and have it be clear that Mizzou is open for partnerships. We want people to come and work with us and be more creative. And our chair said this earlier today, is that it is about continuous improvement. It's about focus. It's about knowing who we are and what we want to be. And Lou Gertzner was the chairman and CEO of IBM. And he said, culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game. And that's what we should be focused on, is how do we enable a culture where we're willing to take those chances, where we're willing to do things differently, where we're willing to establish a veterans clinic and then become a Purple Heart University, because we are making changes for how we deliver services to our veterans. That we are thinking about an artist in residence program that's going to establish us as one of those institutions that's comprehensive and values the arts. To do that, you have to think about, can we change our budget model? Can we think creatively about the fact that our strategy drives budget, and the budget is just a tool that enables that. And to do that, you have to think through what a budget model would be. Local control, some empowerment, decision, transparency, responsibility, accountability, allowing people to do things, but holding them accountable. And that is very empowering to people. So I want you to think about Mizzou as this place where we're really focused on, of course, first and foremost being the university for Missouri, but we're focused on climate, who we are. We're a flagship, we're AAU, we're SEC, we're land grant, we're all of these things. But at the same time, we want to have a culture that is about innovation, welcoming to all, confidence, hardworking, creative, collaborative, and bold. So thank you so much. This Mizzou is where tradition meets innovation, and we are the University for Missouri. Thank you.
Any questions for Chancellor Cartwright? Okay, if not, thank you, Chancellor. I want to talk about the topic of next gen. And as the chair indicated earlier today, we have in front of us opportunities that are difficult. And we do have to come together and get a sense that we all want to achieve excellence. And I do believe that next gen is just one of those projects because of the importance of the impact that we can make. If we look at the 50 states around the country, Missouri does not do very well. We're the 12th highest in cancer deaths, 11th highest in cardiovascular deaths, and 12th in mental distress. As a university that involves 4 separate campuses that have excellent faculty members who can contribute to these areas, it is our imperative to take the lead and deliver better health care for Missouri. In addition to that, Missouri is a big state that has deserts for education, Wi-Fi, and healthcare. But if we look at the rural parts of the state and compare it to urban parts of the state, we're finding that our rural population are having greater instances of heart disease, cancer, and stroke. And in some counties around Missouri, there's not a single primary care physician. We need to do better. But in fact, if we combine the collective activities throughout the university and add that to extension, combine it with telemedicine and Show Me Echo, there's some great opportunities for us to make that impact. There are many organizations that look at what a public research university should strive for. Student success is key. We are a university. But in addition to that, the research and creative works that we provide is also critically important. In many ways, that's measured through extramural funding, publications, national awards for faculty, like the ones that I mentioned earlier today, PhD graduates, among others. But also, as a public research university, understanding our mission for the community and society. There are many organizations throughout the United States, including NIH, Academy of Nursing, the AMA, and the Cancer Institutes that are focused on using precision approaches to be able to improve healthcare. But at the heart of it is that we need breakthrough research at the basic sciences level that can be translated into better clinical care. And we have the infrastructure in place when it comes to faculty and their expertise. What we lack is the spaces that our faculty members need with the state-of-the-art laboratory and the instrumentations for us to pursue them. This is also very important because as public research universities, we need to increase our extramural funding. Through extramural funding, we are able to hire more PhD students, increase the number of high-quality journal publications and books, and the citations that come with it that collectively increase the reputation of the university. And if we look at the requested R&D by agency for this year, NIH stands at $33.7 billion. DOD is much higher. And so there's been a concerted effort at all 4 of our universities to increase multi-investigator proposals for the NIH and the DOD. And you saw some examples of that in my earlier presentation. NSF is important, but look at where NSF is, $5.7 billion. And their level of funding in terms of the incremental increase has not been matched to that of NIH. If I show you this chart that includes in orange the fiscal year 2020 request by the White House and the House and Senate versions of the increase and the final. If you can pay attention to NIH, which is the third set of columns, even those percentages may not look big, but getting a 7% increase on a $33.7 billion budget is significant. Why is this important for our university? I shared this chart last year at a board meeting, and it shows the comparison of total R&D expenditures, what we call the herd data. In 2008, you can see where we were. Mizzou was 74, and S&T was 200, UMKC was 221, and UMSA was 275. But in 2017, in some cases, our university went the opposite direction. They actually decreased in funding. And we all recognize that as a public research university, that these are trends that we need to stem. And all of the chancellors understand how important this is. So the key ingredients for success for NextGen, it's really about people and their ideas, the facilities and instrumentation, and the partnerships that will continue fostering the type of basic and clinical research so that we can have a bigger impact on improving health outcomes for Missouri. During the past 18 months, our faculty members from all across the UM system have worked on areas of expertise of our faculty members, where we believe we can make a difference. I mentioned cardiovascular, cancer, and mental health as being very important areas that we need to improve. Yes?
Cluster hires, and there was a recent article in either the Chronicle of Higher Education or Times Higher Education, I can't remember which one, that cluster hires, which became a deal, have not been particularly successful. But in reading it, made me wonder how they were defining cluster hires. How do we define cluster hires? For instance, would we call it a cluster hire if we did 2 or 3 biomedical hires, which are all biomedical, but they're bringing different specializations, or is a cluster hire broader than that for us?
So it can go into a more broader category, let's say hiring biomedical engineers as faculty to support biomedical innovation. That's what Elizabeth LeBeau has been doing in engineering. Or it can be more targeted. The College of Arts and Sciences, working with the School of Medicine, are going to be hiring about 4 to 5 radiopharmaceutical experts that are going to work on developing newer types of theranostic approaches using nuclear medicine. And so we're going to have both of those categories. And in some cases, we may have a cluster that's already strong but missing a few pieces that can be complemented with 1 or 2 faculty hirings. So those are the ways that we should be looking at these for new hires, but also existing faculty who are driving the research in these areas and having them help us, the provost and the chancellors, identify faculty members that need to be recruited.
It's been a while since I read that article, but as I read it, and I don't know if Alex or Lonta saw it, it indicated that they cluster hire coming in, but then we do our deal and we become silos again. Do we have particular plans on how we're going to avoid that with what we call cluster hires? How we're going to
Alex, you want to?
When we talk a lot about cluster hires here, it's actually the former that Moon was mentioning is we're hiring people who come together in an area, but they aren't necessarily coming as one group, right? So they're gonna have to work with each other. A lot of the cluster hiring, if I remember correctly, I know which article you're talking about. If I remember right, they were talking about if you go out and you hire, say, a key leading person, and then you hire a bunch of the people they want around them, you then get this isolation, this siloing. We want to do it a little differently in that what we're trying to do is hire great people who will come in with actually some significant talent already here in those areas, and that they can connect with those. The radiopharmaceuticals, we already have tremendous talent in that area, and they can all become even better by bringing in these people.
And then have you got a way to, enforce is the wrong word for faculty. How are you-
Encourage.
Ensure, or how, Latha, were you nodding your head yes?
Yes.
How are we going to try to prevent that we do this so we can get these synergies? How do we prevent those synergies from dissipating?
So Latha, if I can ask you to come to the mic.
I knew I'd get you.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the accountability that needs to be built into any hiring we do. The new budget model will help us make a stronger case, but again, it's not, no guarantees, and we all have to be vigilant to make sure that we hold these people responsible. It's not just the chancellor and the provost, it's the deans, it's the department chairs. So we're sort of trying to send that message. But keep asking this question every time, because really I think this is an important question, and all our success is going to, in some ways, critically depend on the effectiveness of the investments we make, and these are significantly larger investments, so I appreciate the question.
So we've had some success with faculty members developing into a cluster. And if I can think of Mizzou, they have the animal sciences group with faculty members coming in at different times, but it's one of the best in the country. Plant sciences is the same way. And SNT, we have the materials group, especially for defense application, that's very strong. And so we need to make sure that when we hire the faculty members that there's an expectation that their success is not going to be based solely on their individual performance, but how they support the entire group. So it's a different way of thinking, but that level of thinking exists currently in pockets throughout the university. Do you have something else?
Yeah, all I'll add is that it's good if you can build them around areas where we have unique capabilities. The fact that we can build around the nuclear reactor, there's a reason that people want to be here. So if you can recruit people who are interested in that, it's much harder for them to go and find a nuclear reactor of the scale that we have.
Thank you. So through that work, we decided to come up with this structure, which says that Next Gen Precision Health Initiative is a system-wide approach to provide us with researchers and those who can actually deliver that healthcare to the community in Missouri. Next Gen Precision Institute is not the building. It's the activity that's going to be led at Mizzou. And those are some of the centers that actually are going to be part of that institute. At the other three universities, they have the initiative format. There's not going to be a brand new building that we expect to build in those campuses, but they have been funded with support from the system and the campuses to have centers of excellence. In fact, there's detailed discussions going on with a prominent donor by the Chancellor Degani, to establish the Glass Science Center, of which this will be a critical component. All right, going forward, we look back at projects that have been awarded to the university since March of 2017 and March of 2019. And we are pleased with the level of performance in this area, with $35 million worth of funding to support Next Gen in these areas, but we have much more room to grow in these areas. So let me talk to you about some of these specific projects. At UMKC, Professor Kun Chang is a professor of pharmacy, and he's developing a very unique approach to reverse not cystic, liver fibrosis that leads to cirrhosis and reverse that trend. And cirrhosis and fibrosis of the liver can be actually stimulated by alcohol, but also diseases. And so this is a major project. Also at the University of Missouri of Science and Technology, they are really known for their work in PTSD and TBI, newer ways to detect TBI, and also developing the types of sensors and protective gear. This is also a partnership with the VA Hospital, Fort Leonard Wood, and faculty members at Mizzou. Professor Rob Paul from UMSL is developing new technologies to use imaging to better understand the onset of HIV and how that leads to neurological diseases. Now, for this work to flourish, Professor Paul and his colleagues need access to the best MRI imaging equipment. So our investment in the Institute will help create those opportunities for Professor Paul as well as other colleagues throughout the system. Rural health. Many people talk about it, but I believe our universities are making an important contribution. Dr. Kathleen Quinn, Jane Peterson, Erica Ringdahl, working at two separate universities, are developing the type of training programs for medical students as well as residents to focus on primary care needs in rural parts of the state. And Chancellor Agarwal is in the process of discussing expanding the medical school program at UMKC to rural parts of the state, and we'll bring that up for board discussion in a future meeting. We're also developing a partnership with a major electron microscopy firm to be able to make investments in these centers as part of our strategic plan investments, but additional investments from us will be required. But together, we'll have one of the most impressive microscopy facilities in the Midwest. The economic impact of this investment is going to be huge. This economic impact study was done by Professor Haslag, and he estimates within 25 years, there's going to be a $5.6 billion in impact. Now, this study was also done without assuming the savings of lives and extending of lives that create a healthier economy. This was just based on research and the economic development that it can create. At the state and federal level, our goal is to get the $10 million that we received last year rolled into the core. It's going to take a lot of hard work by all of us to advocate for that. And at the federal level, we expect that the bill that's been signed by the president will be formulated into an RFP by the VA. We'll apply to the RFP, and we expect to get $15 million by October of this year and $2.7 million for 19 years going past that. So let me share my closing remarks, and while I'm closing, I'd like to ask Chancellor Cartwright to come up. We made good progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. We need to increase philanthropy, and philanthropy is not just the work of advancement. All of us have to have a greater awareness and the ability to talk about next gen at a level that'll get our community leaders, donors, and corporations excited. And currently at all 4 universities, the provosts are working on faculty hiring plans. And through marketing, we need to make this a high priority for the state. And we're going to provide monthly updates to our community, including the Board of Curators, about our progress going forward. So with that, let me turn it over to Chancellor Cartwright.
Thank you. Thank you, President Choi. I do want to thank President Choi for his leadership on this and helping us to establish our ability to go after the Next Gen Precision Health Institute and making a lot of great things happen. And thank you to the board for allowing us to do this. We have a vision, which the President already talked about, of how we serve Missourians, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. But what I'd like to do is, there's a lot of people in this room that I know could equally as easily give this presentation And so all of you who've been involved, if you could stand up, the ones involved in Next Gen, I think it's going to be most of you. So if you have a question, you can still just stand up. But but these are the people who've actually been thinking about what we're doing at Mizzou. There's a number of our faculty. Thank you. We can thank all of them. A number of our faculty have been involved in thinking about what does this look like in terms of vision and a mission. And we have established a governance committee where we are looking at an executive committee that actually includes Ryan Rapp from the system and also the provost, who's working with a number of different faculty groups around faculty research, around the infrastructure and how we keep everything moving, and around partnerships. And that includes the work that we're doing with extension and all of the other activities that we want to do there. So this continues to evolve, and those groups are meeting pretty routinely and thinking about all that we need to be doing. In terms of our faculty updates, we have a number of areas that have been identified through various mechanisms, through our deans, through the faculty groups that we had, that really are broadly defining what are the areas related to precision health. And you can see it's a broad range of topics. And we have to think about which of those we focus on, how we build out those strategic areas where we want to excel. And in fact, if you look back at what we've been doing, we haven't just been sitting around not hiring. We've been hiring a number of faculty that are related to what we're trying to do in precision health. People see it. They see that we're headed in that direction. They want to be part of that. Our faculty are recruiting other faculty to come to this institution, and that has continued. And we have a number of searches underway that are related to the overall initiative of precision health. And we are discussing, one of the groups, the faculty and research group, has started the discussion around who may be actually in the building and how we'd go through the process of deciding that. In terms of the research, President Choi mentioned this, there's a lot of different thematic areas that are related to cancer, neurovascular, and certainly some emerging areas that, again, broad areas, but within those, we have some specific strengths that we can build on. And we go back to that. How do we build on existing strengths and continue to build out those groups so that they can become even stronger? That will continue as we move forward. And one of those examples is the work here on the center around somatic cell, sorry. This is Kevin Wells, and we have a little joke about, the fact that we're the best in the world with pigs. We just are. There's no doubt about it in our mind. And there's a lot of reasons why people would want to work with us to be able to do this. And this work is one more indicator of how terrific that group is, because this is a national center that was funded that recognizes how strong our faculty are in that area. In addition, we have people working on targeted chemotherapies. This work happens to be with nanotechnology that is designed to deliver to certain tumors with recognition elements. So it's almost like a little smart material that can actually find where it's supposed to go and then deliver the drug as needed. And this is a $5.4 million fund that Dr. Cannon has. Again, recognizing the excellence of the people that we have. And we have a Midwest Biomedical Accelerator Consortium that we lead, and it has 14 other universities together. And this is, this started with some of the work we had around the Coulter Foundation and some of the grants that we can do in terms of advancing some of the basic science. But this is take that basic research, translate it into clinical trials, and then continue to move it so that eventually there is some commercialization and some revenue streams that come back to us. And we want to continue that process so that we continue to grow the research here. But it really is, it's taken the leadership of Dr. Fay, Dr. Grant. I saw Sheila is here. I don't know if I didn't see Bill, but they have really spent the time thinking about how we can continue to advance it. And Bill Turpin in our tech transfer office. Dr. Gil Pajes looking at a cancer moonshot. This is really thinking about, you want to talk about personalized and precision medicine, this is what this is. This is immunotherapy based, where what you're doing is you are designing something that is specific to an individual and will only work with that individual. And that's why it is called a moonshot project. But it again recognizes the excellence of our faculty to be able to compete for one of those. And you heard about this one, the connection that we're not just interested in doing this, that it's only going to benefit what's happening here in Columbia. I mentioned earlier that this is about coming to a neighborhood near you. Everything that we do is how we can then translate these technologies out and how we make for better health care across Missouri. And all of the things that we're doing for the rural areas and the underserved populations, those are the things that are going to help us to be even more productive. Dr. Quinn really is doing a fabulous job there and allows us to continue to move forward. Apparently, it's recognizing my voice from here. That's pretty impressive. It said, check it out. Check out what Dr. Quinn is doing. I don't quite know why I did that, but thank you, Chancellor, for doing that for me. There's, in terms of the building, I'd encourage all of you to just drive by it. It's remarkable to see every day when you go by there, and I mean this, it seems like every day there's something different. I see another floor or something going on. And it's exciting to see it, and I think it's exciting for our faculty to know that this is happening, and this is going to make a big difference for this institution everybody across the entire system. And April 27th is when we are trying to do a topping off ceremony, and we'll get you more details on that. But it's a great time for us. Partnerships, imaging, the work at UMSL, thinking about how do we image patients, how do we know more about how they can be impacted. Having a 7 Tesla MRI in our facility that's accessible to everybody across the system will make a big difference for research happening across Missouri. And the virtual cockpit where we are now, MU Healthcare, and their work where they've really been working very closely with the Siemens Group on how do you then run equipment remotely so that you can leverage the expertise that exists in a particular location and not have to have that same level of expertise throughout the state. That is going to make a difference for all of rural Missouri. And a lot of that is part of our Alliance for Precision Health, where we're working on a number of these topics, thinking about AI, robotic technologies. How do you do MRI remotely? How can you treat stroke victims at different locations and provide the expert care that they deserve from a remote area? And we have a number of projects underway that are tied to those things. We have the education work that is happening in engineering with Siemens, where we're training a workforce development type grant that is also part of the Mo Excels program. Those are going to train the people we need. We are looking at the virtual cockpit work. We're looking at other new novel technologies for imaging that could help with bariatric surgeries. So a lot of different things happening, and our faculty are core to those activities and core to how we move forward collectively. We like to put this one in because this isn't just a dream. This is very close to reality in that there are ways that you can actually think about treating a stroke victim from remote regions, and it's all can be done virtually. That has major cost savings to the state because one of the things that's critical about stroke treatment is the timing. You need to get to that person, and if you need to deliver a stent or something into the brain, it has to be done. And I think the doctors can help me out here within the first couple hours from that range. That has to happen quickly. It's a long way from Bolivar to Columbia. But if we have equipment like this, we're able to then deliver it by having our people right here deliver that technology remotely. And that will make a big difference for this state. We are lucky that we have a nuclear reactor and the great people working in radioisotopes at this institution. We have 3 FDA-approved drugs that have come out of that program based on yttrium, samarium. What is TC? Titanium, thank you. And lutetium at the bottom. They continue to develop new isotopes that can have an impact on lots of other areas of health. And I give them a lot of credit for continuing to think innovatively about how they can apply these in different areas and working to build partnerships to not just do the research, but to translate it out. And that's what's important. These drugs are actually treating people and making a difference. And thank you to that whole team for making that possible. We continue to work on partnerships. I mentioned the Siemens work, Novartis, Roche, we have a partnership with, and we continue to build those out where they're going to make a big difference to what we are doing here. And finally, President Choi mentioned this, the work that is happening with the state and the federal government, and we thank all of them for having the belief in what is possible here at Mizzou. So thank you to all of them for being involved in that. Philanthropy, we've raised on the order of about 20 million for the construction and the program, and we continue to build out programs. We have some outstanding proposals that are already out there related to this, and we have a number of other prospects, is probably the wrong way to say it, but people we are talking to about the opportunity that is possible with NextGen. And we don't know where those will end up with in terms of proposal amounts or anything. There's still a lot of conversations to be had, but we do know we have some opportunity to submit additional proposals that will help us to continue to build out on that construction. And we continue to work on that on a regular basis. And then I'm excited that we've really started to think through how we market, how we put this, let people know what we're doing, why this is important. These are a couple examples of, in terms of billboards, in terms of other things that are going to go out there. We are thinking of how we highlight this throughout the state so that people are aware of why this has an impact, right? This is about rural health solutions. This is about heart health solutions. These are the things that we are doing to make things better. And we want people to understand that that's what we're committed to. So I'm really excited about our ability to actually show those types of ads to people to let them know what it is we're really trying to do with NextGen. It's not just about a building or an institute. It's actually more than that. It's about the healthcare in Missouri. And I'd like to thank you for listening. And I apologize for whatever went off over there that Chancellor Degani actually did, so he can blame me. No.
Alex, just a real quick question. In your earlier remarks, you mentioned the existence of an executive committee.
Yes.
I assume that's a committee that exists for the purpose of kind of monitoring and looking after the
Yes.
NextGen. Give us just, I don't need much information, but how often does that committee meet? Who sets the agenda? Who arranges for the?
Well, fortunately, the two people responsible for that are in the room. So I will let Provost Ramchan or Ryan Rapp actually answer that one. How often? Who sets the agenda? Ryan's laughing. His mic is.
So there's the executive committee, and we meet monthly. The agenda is set with the chancellor and president in advance of the meeting. And then there are 3 committees underneath that the chancellor discussed. And I think some are meeting bi-weekly, but all of us are meeting at a minimum monthly. And then there's minutes that are provided up to the executive committee. Also, a readout of any action items that are needed to be completed before the next meeting. To give you some idea of how often, frequently we're meeting.
Do any members or does any committee of the executive committee address philanthropy?
Yes, we have members of our fundraising team on the committee, and that's one of the topics. I'm blanking on it. There's 9 key areas that we talk about, and philanthropy is one of them. And so they're standing agenda items at every meeting, and then we build out what needs to go underneath that, and then there's a readout again of what are any actions we might need to take between now and the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Madam Chair, President Choi, I know I'm here to talk about NextGen and not about sports and football, but I am from Kansas City, and the outcome of the Super Bowl was something very exciting to us. So if you would indulge with me for a second, let me do my best Andy Reid impersonation. How about those Chiefs? Thank you. Now that I've got it out of my system. All right. So I'm very excited about the Next Gen Data Science and Analytics Innovation Center because it aligns with 4 different goals that we have. Number one, it aligns very well with the Precision Health Initiative across the whole system. It aligns with UMKC's desire to become a national leader in data science. It aligns with the fact that it's a major collaboration between Mizzou and UMKC. And I hope that this will be the first of many. And it serves all 4 campuses, and we hope to see more of those kinds of collaborations. What is the purpose of the center? The purpose of the center is to become the backbone for Missouri for all data science work, especially in the area of health. Because if we do precision health, it means personalized medicine to a large extent, and that means large amounts of data. So we need to provide the backbone, the structure, to be able to deal with the data. We will provide the computing power, the software, the expertise of the faculty that can deal with the data. And we will support precision health initiatives across the 4 institutions as well. Anybody that needs to deal with a lot of data can come to the center. So the draft mission of this, and I'm working closely here with my colleagues, is to become Missouri's hub for conducting leading-edge research in data science and analytics to solve critical problems faced by our society and to produce a skilled workforce to meet growing industry demand. This is one of the fastest growing areas in industry: data science, artificial intelligence, data analytics, big data, whatever you may call it, but it's one of the fastest growing professions. The mission will be to advance research in the foundational data analytics science, foster new innovation in diverse fields, and educate our next generation workforce. And here's how we're setting this up. And I'm working very closely with Chancellor Cartwright and Vice Chancellor McIntosh, my own Vice Chancellor for Research, Dr. Liu, and myself. The 4 of us are meeting quite often on this via phone to work out the plan for this, because this is a big deal and it needs a lot of attention. Phase 1, that is this past year and the current year, calendar year, is to create the center, hire the key personnel, including an executive director, build the infrastructure in terms of the equipment that we need, the first phase facilities, the purchasing that we have to do, start identifying the key research teams, industry partners, and those that might help via philanthropy. 2021 to 23, we will start developing the research clusters and start the delivery of the services in a large fashion. And then we will build some brand around this across the state and across the nation. So there will be some hub brand building. We don't want to stop. Through these 2 phases, we'll also be doing a lot of philanthropy, looking for philanthropy, because we want to make sure that we have partners from the private sector and from the industry sector so that we make this a national level center. And then by 2024, we think we will be at a point to then apply to agencies like the National Science Foundation and target a $20 million grant to transform this as a national hub for data science. So ambitious plans, but we are very enthusiastic, and I think we have what it will take to get there. Here's some examples from UMKC for data analytics, especially in the area of medicine. You all have heard of Dr. John Spertus, or perhaps have met with him. He's in a medical school. There was a recent national study that came out with about more than 5,000 patients that looked at cardiovascular health and whether aggressive intervention using stents is necessary or could just pharmaceuticals help. Long story short, it showed that pharmaceuticals are just as good as aggressive intervention. But Dr. John Spertus was a big part of that work, right here as part of the system. He's also quite well known nationally. He got the American Heart Association's Distinguished Scientist Award based on his work on cardiovascular work, which is a very big deal. But not just for cardiovascular, we have Dr. Peter Coolin, who just last week got his second NIH R01, and he works in vision research, age-related vision loss prevention, exploring new techniques for cryopreservation of cells, and he's also looking at imaging of the eye to see if we can, using macular degeneration, to look at other diseases. So really, really good work that's already going on that uses data. Here's some other research examples that may not be directly related to precision health, or it may seem so, but they are. So this is data analytics. The picture that you see is we have our own institute for called IDEAS, which will work with data science. Dr. Brent Never is heading that up from a business school, and that's him being interviewed on this topic by Lester Holt from NBC News in 2019. NBC was in town to see what's happening in Kansas City. Why is it getting on everybody's top 10 list? So here's some examples. Medicaid expansion in Missouri. We have Dr. Janet Berkeley Patton, who's looking at UMKC Health Equity Institute to see what are the non-medical social determinants of health. You may have data analytics for entrepreneurship policy. You have system-wide broadband for all in Missouri initiative. We have a team from UMKC that's looking at it. All of these things will need a lot of data, and we want to provide the infrastructure for all of these people. Social determinants of health, whether it's broadband, whether it's health equity, all of those things play into precision health. Here's some of the recent results from our own research grants in the area of precision health and medical health. In terms of number of awards compared to this time last year, UMKC is up by 10%. This is only for medical and health. And the awarded amount is up by about 14%. Research at UMKC is starting to flourish. If you were to look at these numbers, not just for health, but across the board, that first number would be up about 17% or so, and the second number would be more than 100%. So those numbers are beginning to grow, and we're really pleased about that. We are not just talking about this, we're taking action. So we are coordinating our hiring across campus to support precision health. From psychology, economics, law, as you can go down the list, these are some of the requests that have come from our deans to be approved for the next hiring cycle. So again, in a very comprehensive fashion, and we will do some kind of cluster hiring that was discussed earlier. In our case, cluster would be individuals that maybe work in data science, but are in different disciplines, but they have the same basic expertise of manipulating and analyzing data, and then we bring them together. And when you bring them in as a cohort and have them meet together and start having research meetings together, you build that synergy and the collaboration that Curator Steelman was talking about. That was what we are planning to do. This is some hiring budget for the future. This is just for the precision health piece, obviously. 3 new faculty at least every year for the next many years. And we have already started hiring. This contract was just signed last week. Dr. Nihar Nayak, he's a former Stanford faculty member who's coming in with a large NIH grant. He will lead UMKC's Prenatal Institute to study pre-implantation and implantation defects that lead to problems in pregnancy. He will be collaborating closely with Children's Mercy Hospital, which is right across the street from us. What are the critical needs? We realize that to do all of this, there will be needs. We will need more endowed chairs and professorships to attract and retain faculty. We'll need startup support, graduate assistantships, instrumentation, grant writers, all of these things, but we are aware of what we need. We're working in collaboration with donors and others, as well as realigning resources within the Institute to make this happen. Funding prospects for precision health. Some of the things, couple of areas that are close. Star Wars Research Institute, that, as you know, they are also literally across the street from UMKC in Kansas City. And we are working with them in terms of the hardware for this data institute. We're also working with at least one donor, very specifically, who has in general committed, but we're working on details with that. There are some other prospective discussions that are already underway, including with the Hall Family Foundation to support this. We intend to, at a slightly later point, bring in companies like Dell and IBM to collaborate with us, and then pharmaceutical companies. So it is a very comprehensive plan. We're excited about this. I think precision health is going to make a big difference in the state of Missouri. Thank you. Questions, if any?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
President Choi, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to present to you what Missouri S&T is doing to enhance and advance the precision health and next-gen program. I'm starting to call it a program because I think it's beyond the initial stages of an initiative, as we can see all that is going on. But first, whereas Missouri S&T is a high technology institute, really, and whereas we are also a land grant and a space grant institution, and whereas Mizzou calls itself the flagship campus of the system, I declare that Missouri S&T is the spaceship campus of the system. With that, I'd like to start with the presentation. You will see that in an overview, we have a lot of activities ongoing that are really in very mature stages of function. We have a lot of new initiatives, as you can see, Center for Glass Science and Technology that President Choi mentioned. We have multiple academic expansion programs that we like to offer. We have a lot of partnership. We have infrastructure needs and really state-of-the-art facilities in collaboration with others, and then engagements that I am going to highlight. There are a lot of details in the slides, but for the sake of time, I'm going to highlight really two major ongoing and futuristic activities that are on our campus in collaboration with our partners. One is really the traumatic brain injury, and then the other one is the healthcare initiative, actually delivery of healthcare in a more precise and personalized manner, as I will describe. You should know that there are about 5 million traumatic brain injuries in the United States that go on, and hundreds of thousands of them involving soldiers and in particularly with the Army. And contrary to common wisdom, a lot of these injuries don't happen in the battlefields, but rather, believe it or not, during the training that happens. And we are a neighbor of one of the largest Army training facilities, Fort Leonard Wood activities, and I think there is 600 registered traumatic brain injuries that happened at Fort Leonard Wood last year. So we have a lot of ongoing work with them, including a $5.1 million federal funding, which came to us through RDEC. Do we still have a quorum?
Can you hold on 1 second? Now we do.
Okay.
It's not you, Mo.
I know. I hope not. Anyway, so let me move on. A 5.1 research funding for various grades of traumatic brain injury, mild as well as really impactive brain injuries, and I'll describe some of them. On this slide, you'll see our collaboration with the Phelps Health. as well as the Fort Leonard Wood Institute, with the funding that came to us from ARDEC, this is Army Research and Development Center, through Fort Leonard Wood, but nonetheless, that's the collaboration that we have with the Army. You can see that there are multi-disciplines that are contributing to the traumatic brain injury, from mitigating brain injury to understanding the level of shock that causes brain injury. You can see disciplines in here ranging from mechanical engineering to chemistry to numerical analysis to data analysis, medicine, and so on and so forth. Now, addressing a question that was on the table earlier with regards to how do we maintain a cluster, in my view, there is no better way to bring a group of faculty together in a cluster format than put a critical challenge in front of them. As we have seen it here, and I have seen it in many other situations, both here and before, when you put a challenge in front of a group of faculty, and there's no single discipline challenge anymore, it's amazing how they transcend their own discipline boundaries to come together to contribute to the solution of the grand challenge that is in front of them. And we are observing that in play right now, where people who are trying to create smart helmets and sensor systems, and then after the initial insult of brain injury happens, how do we mitigate the chemicals that are produced in the brain so there won't be any further damage to the brain, and so on and so forth. So I submit to you that, yes, it's important to hire in a cluster manner, but unless they come together to solve a problem, the cluster will not remain a cluster. It'll dissolve itself. So the other approach that is going on at SNT is a delivery of medicine in a targeted manner. So let me just say one of the impressive activities, frankly, that are going on that is going on at SNT is the development of nanoparticles, as you can see in this next slide, but I'll come back to it. And being able to functionalize the nanoparticles and address them to the troubled zone, okay? So one of the things that's going on at SNT is the formulation of the nanoparticles that they can bond themselves to a particular protein. Let's say if it's a metastasized cancer cell. In the case of there is an activity going on for the metastasized liver cancer, which we know, but this is a secondary approach to that, where a particle is formed and then it's functionalized. In other words, chemotherapy drugs are loaded on it, radiation drugs are loaded on it, and then they are sent to the cancer cells and they bond themselves. In fact, a company is formed by the title of Bond Co., where then these nanoparticles begin to attack the cancer cells very locally without damaging the healthy cells. Now, the next level challenge for this approach is how do you silence the defense mechanism of cells? Because the minute cells realize that they're being attacked, alpha and beta defense systems will come up, and now we are trying to functionalize the cells so they will silence the defense mechanism of a cell before starting to function as a radiation cell itself or chemotherapy approach. That's very, very exciting for metastasized cancer situation. And then the other approach, as I mentioned, is that once the traumatic insult happens for the brain starts producing, think of it as chemicals, that then they need to be neutralized. But the problem is that there is a blood-brain barrier, sort of like our skin, that doesn't allow bacteria to enter our bodies. There is a similar defense mechanism in our skulls that doesn't allow anything external to get in. And the approach here is, how do you actually penetrate the blood-brain barrier in order to be able to neutralize the chemicals that are beginning to be produced after the initial insult that happens. So very, very exciting work that is going on, and clearly next gen, frankly, everything that we do is next gen in terms of medical delivery or delivery of healthcare, whether it's individualized or at the scale, in this case, nanoscale, cellular scale that happens. This is the slide that I was talking about. Production of these cells is a challenge. These nanoparticles, polymeric nanoparticles, the challenge there is yield. You can produce them, but you'll need systems engineering approach to make sure that all operating parameters are properly set so that you will actually end up having a level of yield that is useful to you, okay? So you can, I think everybody in here is familiar with the glass science that goes on at SNT, where these nano glass spheres are produced, then they are functionalized in a different manner. They become radioactive, and then they are injected into the bloodstream and get into the liver, in very particular case that MOSI is working on. And they are large enough that they will not go through the filters of liver very close to tumors. And they get assembled there, accumulated there, and then they start attacking the tumor within the liver. Now, a very reverse of that operation. In that case, you want to make sure that the glass particles that are functionalized do not get dissolved within the system, because then they do bad things to the system. But in a different manner, you want those glass particles, fibers in this case, to dissolve to heal wounds. So exactly the opposite thing. One, very hard glass spheres that are functionalized that need to remain glass spheres to perform their function. In the other case, where you want to heal wounds, you want them to resolve and actually excite the regeneration of cells to produce, to heal wounds. Parenthetically, I'd like to mention that this effort is the third largest revenue generating license for the entire Missouri system. And I also like to highlight that the very first, third, and sixth largest is Missouri SNT, the spaceship university of the system. It is sort of ironic that the advances we make in traumatic brain injury, it's really funny. In my one of my previous jobs, I was a member of a team that was trying to come up with an artificial heart. It was called the Hopkins heart. And the cardiologist will tell you that there are exactly 5 million people in the country in need of a heart. And they will tell you that over the past 20 years, the rate of heart donation has remained steady at the rate of 25,000 a year. And the rate of the need is increasing by 10% a year. You know, baby boomer generations and so on and so forth. And when you ask how come the rate of heart donation has remained constant at 25,000 a year, they'll tell you the motorcycle helmet laws and the car seat laws. They are preventing the death of the people that are prime donors of heart. And now here we are actually contributing to reduce that 25,000 even further. So you can see the dichotomy that goes on there. I guess every silver lining has a dark cloud associated with it, I suppose, you know. But that is really what is going on here. You can see the last bullet in here, vascular and nerve repair regeneration, which is the next level effort for us. As President Choi mentioned, we are very much hopeful for a significant donation in this particular area. And I'm not talking about the significant donation. I'm talking about a significant donation that we are working on in the area of the glass science. So please don't confuse the two in this case. There is more going on. And let me just say that we have a terrific group of faculty. We will highlight them for you the next time that you are at the Spaceship University. And you will see that a significant amount of collaboration between all of our centers, universities, campuses, and in fact, other universities in the state of Missouri, like Washington University that we are collaborating with. A lot of effort is ongoing towards next-gen delivery of healthcare, whether it's robotic remote delivery of healthcare or scale-level delivery, which is nanoparticle, functionalized nanoparticle. Very, very exciting. And I think that's why I like to call the Next Gen a program anymore and not an initiative. I think we are way beyond the stages of calling it an initiative. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So thank you for allowing me to present about some of the strengths that we already have at the University of Missouri St. Louis with regards to the Next Gen initiative, our program, and some of the ways in which we are building out to make sure that we align collaboratively. So the Next Gen Precision Health Initiative has sparked vigorous conversation among our faculty and staff that will lead to long-term and immediate results for improving health outcome for Missourians and the world. Some of the immediate results, of course, come in the form of healthcare-related educational fields and research projects, and I'll give some details on those in a second. But before that, I want to mention that UMSL faculty from fields such as anthropology, biology, business, chemistry, economics, philosophy, political science, psychology, social work, and sociology are working together to formulate programs that could influence healthcare policies and research. And among the areas of initial interest are healthcare economics, bioethics, biological human diversity, and global healthcare trends. We believe that these could be important areas in which UMSL can further participate in this unique initiative, leveraging our academic strengths and the Next Gen mission. One of the immediate and most important efforts underway at UMSL campus within the Precision Health Initiative is the renovation and expansion of the Nursing, Learning, Resource, and Simulation Center to prepare Missouri's nursing workforce. Now, the total cost of this initiative is approximately $8 million, with fundraising commitments totaling $1.23 million to date and another $1.9 million in donor proposals pending. UMSL is also included in a proposal through the MOExcel's Workforce Initiative, which is a program run by the Missouri Department of Higher Ed and Workforce Development. And right now, it's in the budget for $1.5 million. And upon its completion, the center will allow UMSL to vastly enhance the number of skilled nurses for the state by expanding our undergraduate enrollment capacity by 20%. And along with this initiative, we are making strategic faculty hires throughout the College of Nursing, including 4. I know it says 2. We've hired 2 recently. Accepted offers, 1 pending, and 7 searches underway. In addition to the new faculty hires in nursing, we have also just this month confirmed 3 new faculty appointments in the College of Arts and Sciences with ties to precision health and have 2 searches currently underway. We will soon welcome Chelsea Welks, whose focus is on health data science, Devin Banks, whose research is in health disparities, and Ryan Carpenter, whose focus is on substance abuse. A central player in the Precision Health Initiative, the Missouri Institute for Mental Health has used significant external grants to recently hire 4 new researchers in its continuing efforts to improve health outcomes throughout Missouri. We expect to target additional faculty in the coming months to support the initiative on the UMSL campus. Now, numerous faculty, UMSL faculty, are participating in the $20.5 million research initiative spearheaded by the system and the Next Gen Precision Health Initiative. 2 projects are centered on our campus specifically. And in fact, Cynthia DePurrier is leading a project to upgrade UMSL's microscopic image and spectroscopy technology lab, which will support efforts to compete for top-tier funding opportunities, strengthen industry ties through collaboration, and provide the best training for the next generation of scientists. The MIST Laboratory at the UMSL Center for Nanoscience has expertise and equipment for various types of specimen preparation and microscopic analysis. The laboratory supports research and training programs and provides analytical support and referrals for local industries and members of the academic community. Facility scientists provide comprehensive consultation on micro and nano characterization. This investment in state-of-the-art instruments will be key to the development and application of nanotechnology fields ranging from medicine to crime scene investigation, from materials engineering to catalysis, and from the electronic device industry to the study of extraterrestrial materials and plans. UMSL's Alexei Demchenko is leading a project to establish the Glycosine Consortium, which will build collaborations to accelerate the rational design, synthesis, and evaluation of carbohydrate-based drugs. He is joined in this endeavor by Professors Ike Bauer, Michael Nichols, Chris Spilling, Keith Stein, and Chung Wong. Dr. Demchenko is working with our advancement staff to create a stronger corporate connections to leverage the system funding with private support. And in the next slide, you'll see that he is also successfully attracting additional national grants, leveraging the system and campus investment. UMSL does not have a medical school, but we are very active in education and research fields related to healthcare. As you can see from this slide, UMSL researchers are increasingly successful in attracting external grants, and more than 45% of those grants are healthcare related. We believe our current and proposed efforts under the Next Gen umbrella, some of which I mentioned earlier, could accelerate external funding even further. Now again, this slide indicates that UMSL researchers are actively seeking support for their innovative work, and that much of it relates directly to improving healthcare outcomes and the Next Gen Precision Health Initiative. That ends my short update, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you. May I ask if you can stay up here, Chancellor Soblik, and if I can ask all of the chancellors to come to this region. Let me end by reiterating the closing remarks. We have a lot of work to do, and especially in philanthropy. But we do have backup plans. We don't want to implement those backup plans because we have opportunities for this very exciting program to gain support from both donors and corporations. Now, the biggest concern that I have is that this project may not succeed to the level that we expect because of lack of leadership. For that reason, Chancellor Cartwright and I are going to be leading the efforts, not the scientific efforts, efforts to ensure that philanthropy, building construction, financing are all contributing at the level that we expect. At the same time, we will be appointing and hiring scientific directors to lead the science clusters of faculty who are already here, but also attracting new faculty members who will help to grow our activities in precision health. The other area of concern is perhaps the perception that we have to convince leaders and faculty to support us. And at many universities, we have individuals, and I was one of them as a faculty, I would say, what's in it for me? Well, what's in it for all of you is an opportunity to perform research and clinical care that makes a difference to Missourians and meeting our public mission. We have to do a better job of communicating the message to engage the faculty, donors, and so forth. But we would want every faculty member and administrator to say, how can I help? That's an exciting approach. And so that's going to be our job collectively to share with the community to make sure that this project is a great success. So with that, let me ask the board if there are any questions, comments, and we'll try to answer those for you.
The only comment I would make is that, yeah, certainly the research and the activities that have been described will have significant effect on Missourians, but at the same time, they'll have worldwide significance. I mean, it'll go way beyond Missouri, the successful research we're talking about here.
Absolutely. The work that's being done by Missouri S&T will impact all service members, not just in Fort Leonard Wood. And if we develop newer types of isotopes that can be used for drugs to treat breast cancer, prostate cancer, or even lung cancer, imagine the impact that's going to have, not only in Missouri, but throughout the world. So absolutely. Any others? Okay, well, let me thank the,
Let me ask this.
yes.
From what I understand, your philanthropy is really, private givings at about 20 million at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the number we were shooting for was 100,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, I mean, we've got lots of prospects. We're working those diligently. You know, it seems like we're not jumping that ladder up like we should be.
Sure. So that's going to take a lot of work. And our focus, the focus for me and all of the chancellors, is to identify those organizations to help support, not just through donors, but corporations that help in the construction of the building, but also operating the building. Now, when we had those targets of 100 million, we did not expect that the VA will come through with this large investment to co-locate their researchers with us. So we're going to keep trying to find additional sources of funding to first construct the building, but also allow us to have programmatic support to address some of those issues that we discussed.
Well, I would just say that it looks like, with the comments of the four chancellors, that it looks like at least the chancellors in every campus have really bought in to the vision and where we're headed.
I'll let them answer that question.
And I think
With nods.
I think that's great. I think from the board standpoint,
Yeah.
we appreciate that because
Sure.
I know when we first started, we kept saying this is going to be a tough sell
Mhm.
to the various campuses. And it looks like they've bought in.
We have the right group of leaders that understand that through this effort, not only can they make an impact to the communities, but this is the best opportunity to increase NIH funding, DOD funding, funding that's going to be so critical to increase our stature as a university. Yes.
And to Curator Snowden's point, we're going to be receiving updates on the progress, not only of the hiring and all the wonderful research that we're
Mhm.
looking to do, but also on the advancement efforts
Of
and
course.
how we're tracking
Sure.
to the goals, right?
Sure. So we're going to include that as part of our monthly sharing of the dashboard, but specifically call out Next Gen. Thank you. All right, with that, thank you very much. And I want to thank the chancellors for their hard work, and we still have a lot of work to do.
Good afternoon. How is everyone? Thank you again for having me. I'm here again to provide an update on sort of where we're at with e-learning and how we're continuing to progress over the year. One thing that maybe just became evident is just a quick reminder, I started in June. And so we're still underway, we're still going fast, and so we're going to provide as much detail as we can here. Maybe just a little. Well, I got asked at lunch how many years I'd been here, and so we're working on that. We'll get there. So with that, just a quick reminder of sort of the vision for e-learning, and that we are looking to target Missouri and the contiguous region, and that we really are working to grow our enrollments in adult education, and also bring in additional traditional learners. Quick highlights again on our main objectives. So really working to serve new students, really working to bring in new and innovative programs into the space, right? So this is the stackable, this is sort of new kinds of agile offerings that really meet the demands and needs of our adults within the state, and really returning people in order to help progress them in their career paths and trajectories going forward, and then ultimately to help increase net revenues and really grow programs and investments in research and the teaching missions of the different campuses. Just a quick history, so just some quick reminder on the numbers. So this is actually just a quick pull from the IPEDS information where you can sort of see how we're ranked within the nation. And so, yes, please.
Define online students here. Are these, like Arizona State, or like you talked about on today's program, are they purely online students? Are we including all?
So yeah, so for this poll, this would be fully online students.
This is fully online.
This is fully online students. Yep, and this is fully online compared to our peers and what they've submitted as well for their IPEDS rankings, right? So just to give you a sense of where we're at within the nation, and so we really have a good start, right? We already have a large number. We really are already competing well in this area, and so what we're really talking about is how are we accelerating our growth going forward, and what does that really look like? So again, back to that strong foundation. The last time we met, we specifically talked about how we were starting to come together as e-learning. And so I'm very sort of pleased to announce that in close partnership with UMKC, UMKC has agreed to really come on board. They've committed resources into e-learning. And so we will be continuing sort of some continued alignment with UMKC, but they are now fully on board and participating in the e-learning effort. With that being said, we're also continuing with S&T, and so I had a great conversation with Provost Roberts yesterday about how to continue to work to bring S&T into the e-learning effort as well. As you know, they have some unique offerings at S&T. They've got a long history with S&T Global, and so really figuring out the right way and the right path for S&T Global is going to be critical as we go forward in e-learning. We've also started to increase, so back to your sort of count question, right? How are we counting? How are we getting data access? And how are we able to understand our population of online and digital students that are attending our different campuses? And so we've really been working on getting access to data and on sort of aligning our conversation around how are we going to be appropriately counting going forward, and what does that really look like. So that's sort of underway now. Those are conversations that we're having with campuses. We're working with registrars, and we're really defining what an online student means to the system. Yes?
I apologize for this, but I may have to leave, and you know that I'm very interested in this. Do we have any idea what margin or profit we're generating now, or are we in those negotiations for counting so that we can't tell?
So at the historical level for the different campuses, specifically if you look at MU, we do have a good understanding of the revenue generation and the profitability of that operation.
Do you know what that is?
As a percentage?
No, as a number.
No, I do not.
Okay.
Rhonda? Do you know what that number is, or no? You don't know?
So let me make sure I understand. We don't know if we're making money?
No. We know if we're making money. I don't know the specific amount of money that we're making.
Okay.
So people have different understandings of what's profit and what's making money and what's revenue. So when you're trying to say, well, what is the margin? What all cost do you want to have considered before you say there's a margin? So we know that we bring in millions of dollars in online, and we know where all that money comes from. But then part of what you want to factor into that is what base of support did it take to generate that revenue? So we don't have an absolute agreed to definition right now of how we would say exactly what the margin online is when they're relying on infrastructure that's down in the schools and colleges. So we can definitely get to an understanding of what we want to consistently report as margin, but right now it's embedded in the overall margin of how we operate as a campus, not just the online piece of it.
Would that be something that by our next meeting, perhaps you could come up with how we're doing now, and at least a formula for it? Because at some point, we're going to have to be able to answer the questions that have been asked.
Right, we
So
do need to understand how all those finances work, but one of the things that I'm trying to be sensitive to is when we look at the way our new budget model is going to work, we need the schools and colleges and others to all think of all of that as part of what they're doing collectively. And we absolutely know online is one space in which we can grow revenue and where we should generate margin, but it isn't the only thing that can get movement for us. And so what I need to make sure is that as we talk about these issues and we work with our schools and colleges, that it doesn't appear that this is a singular place that they're supposed to be focusing their effort to generate revenue.
Overhead is always really tricky. And
Exactly.
That's going to be a real problem. But if we could get a better idea, something reasonably close, that would really be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just my perception of the board actions, particularly when we took on the task force and my perception of Arizona State, and those of us who went out to Arizona State, was how do we identify and get to a scale where we can identify a significant amount of money, which I think was your third point 1 or 2 slides ago. How do we know what money we have generated by this project to invest elsewhere, and particularly in research? How do we know that, Rhonda? How do we figure that out?
Right. So when we ramp up online, that's one revenue source. It's not the only source that we will use to invest in research.
But I will tell you, the board's perspective, I believe, was to have an online scaled up that would generate money that we can identify as available for investment. And how do we do that?
Right. So part of this that remains important, though, is making sure that there's ownership of all the people who need to make this happen. So if we get too discrete in exactly this particular source, then in some ways we're disempowering the folks who we're relying on to make it happen. So when we want to scale these up and we want to invest in research, we want to do it collectively with our schools, colleges, and faculty, and not have it appear that this is one separate thing that is the source that's going to run that. Certainly, we will be providing that kind of data to each of those leaders about where are they able to generate those resources. And then through the model, we take money off the top of all tuition revenue that's generated in order to invest in mission, which is one of the primary ways you can invest in research is through mission.
Let me just say my concern here. I think you had Missouri at 146, which puts us at 98%.
94.
In online. All of the experts that we hired and that we heard from in the RFP process on our online task force, and Matt, you weren't here. Were you on that task force, Rhonda? All of the people we heard are saying that the number of successfully scaled online institutions that are able to generate a significant margin would be, some think it'll go down to 4 or 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, John's gone, but Moon was there. I don't think anybody thinks there'll be more than 10 that are truly successful online operations. So to put that in perspective, while we look good, if that is true and the experts are true, we have a long way to go. And my perception, again, of what Arizona State does, what Purdue is trying to do, which has not been all as successful as they thought, and UMass and some of those others, is they have gone a totally different route, which is to make their funds and the costs very discrete so that there is accountability. And so I am very sensitive to what the university is saying. I hope this is not one of those cases where we are so sensitive that we miss an opportunity that could advance Missouri and actually and truly scale online learning. So and I've got to step out, and I apologize. It's just a family thing. But, and I stayed for this. And I've looked at it, you've got some pretty good presentations. I am very concerned that your present modeling will get us to where I can tell you that the board, I think, wanted to get. If a board member disagrees with me, they should disagree with me now.
Comment?
I think there's a different question being asked and answered, unless I'm missing something. Your question is, how do we put a finite number and say, when we provide this, whether it's to, an undergrad rule, whatever, that this is how much goes into it, i.e., if we took this number out, we'd know what the profit is. I don't think you're asking them to say, well, when you put that over into the research bucket, this is how much you put. You're asking them to figure out if we're spending $5 million, and I'm making up a number, $5 million to get this up and running, at what point does it become profitable? Well, the only way to do that is to take out the things you're talking about. Faculty time, expert time, all of this. Take those things out and say, here's where we are today. And in fiscal year 2020, this is what we made or lost, so that we can track that from fiscal year 2020 to 2020.
I understand what you're saying. I understand why you might have thought my question was that. I think Rhonda and I are understanding each other, aren't we? That is the question you're answering. But what I have picked up is that is because we're trying to have you said less discrete. I think that's a good way of putting it. Budgeting model.
So you and I do understand each other a fair bit, but I thought you were asking a different question.
Oh, okay.
I thought you
Yeah,
were
I'm
wanting to
sorry.
know what the revenue stream was that was going to be able to go from online into research as a discrete item, how much of that exact money?
I kind of was, but I've moved over to the fact, because you've answered actually my question and what I'm hearing you say, which is that we are moving to, we might want to call it a more collaborative model than some places like Arizona State have. But I am concerned that it will be ultimately unsuccessful in what we want to do.
So part of what we're trying to accomplish is understand what a whole variety of opportunities are, and online is a big opportunity in certain spaces. We also want to make sure that we don't have folks who could be successful other places thinking, well, that's the place that the university is going to generate resources in the future. So we're trying to make sure that as people are looking at each of these things, that they're capitalizing on the opportunities in front of them. And so when we talk about making sure we understand the cost of what we're doing, we're going to do that across everything we're doing, not just the online space. And so we'll be able to look at that across.
That's right. Not to
different
belabor
functions.
this, but what I believe the successful institutions like Arizona State, UMass, New Hampshire have done is avoid that problem by separating online and using separate resources and like that. And I thought we could do that and still pay faculty to participate in those separate resources. I'm afraid that ultimately this asset allocation way does not drive the type of scale that we want. So I know I didn't ask the question artfully, Michael, but that's.
I've been here as long as him, so I missed all this in the beginning, so
Yeah.
I'm playing catch up.
Well, and it's, and I'm not asking it all that well too, but I think those of us who went and have been on this kind of understand what I'm saying.
And I, Matt and Rhonda, probably understand what needs to be done before the next meeting to try to answer some of these questions.
And I think Ryan has been trying to add a point.
Well, I think at the next meeting, we can paint a really clear picture of this. One is the actual cost, the overhead cost that we're adding to this is very well understood. And that's going to be isolated, and that's going to be understood, and that's part of Matt's organization. I think Matt has an understanding, I talk to him very frequently, that he needs to be able to run his organization at about 40% of our online revenue. If he wasn't able to do that, we go with an OPM, because they're going to charge us 50 to 60% of revenue. So I think that part is understood. What Rhonda's really speaking to is, after we've paid the overhead, how are they going to then allocate the revenue through their campus? And I don't think it will be something that gets separately allocated outside of their resource allocation model, but I think we can answer your question.
You are saying we can track, or will be able to track the revenue. Maybe that's it. Maybe we just concentrate on Matt's center and track that. Will we be able to get that information?
Yes, I mean, I think the point is, what we're trying to do here is saying, we've done okay in online. We really haven't made a concerted effort to see, can we capture some of the scale at the level an ASU has been able to capture. So we will be able to understand that. I think what we've been doing historically is more of the baseline we're starting from, and then trying to understand how we can go higher than where we're at.
Again, y'all are bearing with me too much. And I appreciate that, so that makes me feel a lot better about that. Then what I am also concerned with is the urgency. Again, Matt, you've been here 6 months. I was actually gonna say that before you did. But you're saying we're looking at marketing. We've been having a long discussion on kind of what we wanted to do. For example,
We're launching marketing in March.
Okay, and what are you gonna do with the business schools, very innovative, stackable certificates, which, again, I've been watching to think that I would see that through some marketing. Are we gonna have a particular emphasis on these more imaginative programs like that, or like the online fitness?
Yeah. So there are two things that are underway. So one is we're currently engaging with Carnegie Dartlet. I know that we've mentioned this now a couple of times. They're actually here next week. They're on each campus all of next week, working on finishing their analysis for branding, right? So that's our longer or midterm strategy. Basically, how do we start deploying branding broadly starting next fall? Right now, and I'm gonna just skip ahead, so we're really looking at how are we ramping up our marketing strategy now for our initial set of programs that we're looking to help add some additional scale to in the fall. And so this is really where we're making direct investments in the existing brands in a very targeted fashion for each of those degree programs. And so that's really then where we're working to drive these two funnels, right? So there are two primary funnels. One is how can we drive additional inquiries into the individual programs? And then how can we help herd along or basically help curate those inquiries into actual applicants and enrollments. And so we're in the process right now of really working to identify a vendor and a provider, but also building out some additional internal capacity. So that internal advertising ramp up starts now. So you are going to start seeing those ads if you start looking like a business student. So, and I guess I want to emphasize that. So in really launching targeted ads and targeted digital advertising, if you're out Googling for, a business degree, then you might start seeing these in your area. But if you don't, you may not see them, right? So they may not, in the same way that, if you go into Amazon and look for something particular and then ads start following you in Facebook and wherever else you might go, right? So this is where we're launching that ramped advertising starting in March. And so you're going to see a lot of additional acceleration with any of the existing efforts that might have already been underway for those programs. And we're working very closely with the existing marketing and communications people at the different campuses in launching these individual advertising campaigns. And so just to give you a sense of what these kind of look like at some much larger size, this is what those ads kind of look like. This is then part of the second piece. So we're finishing the RFP hopefully in the next week and a half for how are we then, as we generate additional inquiries starting in March, how then are we managing and supporting those additional inquiries into application and enrollment. And so this provider that we come out with this RFP for will be directly helping us scale and manage that service because we're basically hoping to add a 0 to the number of inquiries that are currently coming into the campuses. Yeah. Do you want me to go back? Do you want me to keep going? Would you like to end here?
Given that we're at 3 o'clock, what do you think?
Can I give one more slide?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and explain the one that I paused on for a long period. So one question that you had was how do we start counting and when do we know how to count to understand what the additional growth was? Specific to e-learning and what does that begin to look like. So this slide gets at exactly that question. So the 504 as the first dot in aligning with EY's projections really starts to get at the net new students that we would be adding into programs. So in an example, if you look at a cohort that might have already been coming in at like 68, we're then looking to add additional net new students. And so we will have an understanding of the additional net new students that we brought in on top of an average existing cohort in a program by program fashion. So we do have to individually forecast and model program by program. They're basically each individual small businesses. And so we're in the process of doing that now in close collaboration with Ryan and his office.
Thank you.
And it,
Matt, I think you've made some serious progress.
yeah, and this gives you in your packet, this gives you a sense of the numbers by program that we're currently estimating. So in the forecasting that we're currently doing in the underwriting model that we've built out with the help of Ryan and his team, we can show you in looking at each individual business sort of what those costs and revenue projections begin to look like. We're working to basically sharpen those pencils. I would call them fairly blunt right now. But we're in the process of further understanding and adding clarity to our forecasting and underwriting model.
If I could ask one more question.
Yeah.
John and I are the last surviving members of the task force, I think. We're at 146. What's your goal? Where are you trying to get to? What do you think it takes to start having significant margin?
Yeah, so 10,000 is your number. So if you recall, back when Haven was here in November, he showed you a chart that described what it looked like to be a scaled institution. And the magic line is getting over 10,000 total distance students. And so this is where we're working to sort of fully define what a distance student is across the different campuses. So that way we have clarity in counting. And we are looking at starting sort of back from July of 19. And then how do we go forward? Looking at academic year 21 going forward and what does that look like? And how ultimately can we reach that goal of 10,000, right? So basically then we can be considered a scaled institution when you start to look at the metrics and you sort of start to look at the rankings and where we come in. And that would basically start to crack us into the top 50. So if you come back to that original slide where I showed you the rankings by iPads, that would start to put us as a significant player in the space from a scale perspective.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
All right, I'm going to move us along. I've done a very poor job of that this last half.
We're on time.
Yeah, but we still have the good and welfare of the board. Does anybody have anything for the good and welfare of the board? If not, I'm going to move for the board's approval to adopt a resolution honoring Jamie Farmer, acknowledging her contributions during her service on the Board of Curators for contributing valuable insights into the governance and business aspects of the university that drove a more thoughtful planning process for capital projects and a focus on performance and measurable outcomes. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Abstentions? I believe the motion carries. And at this point, I also move for us to go into executive session. Can we get a second?
Second.
Cindy, will you please call the roll?
Curator Burnsick,
Yes.
Curator Chapman,
Yes.
Curator Graham,
Yes.
Curator Lehman,
Yes.
Curator Snowden,
Yes.
Curator Steelman,
Yes.
Curator Sunville,
Yes.
Curator Williams.
Yes.
All votes in favor.
That was an emphatic.
All right.
yes.
Mhm.